Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It is a Wednesday. It's a packed, crazy, wild Wednesday that will have a lot of eyes on Madrid. We'll also have a lot of eyes on Seattle at the end of the night. UEFA Champions League semifinal with City and Madrid trying to live up to the heights of the first leg, 4-3. I don't know if the second leg can match that, but it could surpass it. Who knows? It's going to be a wild ride. I don't think it'll be quite as high scoring of a wild ride. We'll find out today. That's this afternoon, kickoff at 3 o'clock. And then tonight, late night, CONCACAF After Dark. Seattle Sounders, Pumas 2-2 going into the Seattle leg of the final. And that's going to have all the drama. That's going to have a packed house at Lumen Field. They have found a few more folding chairs to set up for that. I think tickets, there's 200 of them that they're going to sell at $19.74. That's when the club was founded, 1974, at least the original Sounders. It's not actually a direct link all the way through, but hey, we embrace the history wherever we can find the history. We take it. And the Sounders could make a lot of history tonight, being the first team from MLS to win in the CONCACAF Champions League era and the first MLS team to win a CONCACAF title since 2000 when the LA Galaxy did it. DC United did it in 1998. That's the only other time. And both of those were very different kinds of formats than this. So the Sounders are on the verge of history. Liverpool was on the verge of some bad history yesterday, but they were able to turn that around in the second half. Talk about a wild ride. Villarreal, the Yellow Submarine, was cranked up in the first half. They got it to 2-2 on aggregate, and then Luis Diaz comes into the match, and forget it, it's all over. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk to Dylan Butler about the weekend that was in Major League Soccer. We're going to talk a lot about tonight with Seattle and Pumas with Dylan. Mike Conti's going to join us. We'll talk about Atlanta's trip to Montreal and look ahead to the Chicago Fire, who are adding pieces as we speak. Jairo Torres is now in place in Chicago. He has done his hello, how are you? I am Jairo Torres. I am here to play. He will be available for selection on Saturday. Chris Mueller, we've learned the Chicago Fire are giving up a lot to get Chris Mueller, which is a little surprising. Talk about that as well with Mike, and we'll take some questions and other stuff at the end of the show. But, John, let's start with the game yesterday that got everybody going, Liverpool and Villarreal. Didn't really expect a whole lot out of this. You know, I didn't think Villarreal would roll over on the night, but I did not expect them to pull level on aggregate and go to 2-2 at halftime.
And especially getting the goal in the first couple of minutes. Etienne Capoue had a fantastic first half with distribution. Dia puts it in the net in the third minute, and then you get another one in the 40s just before the half, and it's 2-2 on the aggregate, and everybody's kind of sitting there going, whoa, okay, we got something going on here. Then, as you mentioned, Jurgen Klopp swaps out Diogo Jota for Luis Diaz, and Diaz just absolutely abused Juan Foyt on the back for Villarreal. And the numbers were really interesting when you kind of look at him a little bit. In his first 15 minutes, Luis Diaz touched the ball more than Jota did in the whole of the first half. Every one of the touches was putting Villarreal on their heels. And you look at the numbers in the overall, this is just in 45 minutes for Luis Diaz. 18 of 20 in passing, so that's 90%. 36 touches, 4 of 4 on his dribbles, and I think that 4 of 4 on his dribbles, I think that was twice as many successful dribble attempts than any of his other teammates. Then 2 for 2 on long balls, 4 for 5 on duels won. So Luis Diaz, for me, in 45 minutes, definitely man of the match for Liverpool.
Yeah, I think it's unfair to compare his numbers to Jota because it's a different game when Diaz comes on than Jota. I think they have different responsibilities, but yeah, when you needed that, you had Luis Diaz, and that signing is a massive one because he was all set to go to Tottenham. It was all ready to go, and Diaz came on and turned this game on its head. Goalkeeper for Villarreal, Geronimo Rulli, not exactly all that impressive. He's erratic is the word that I've seen around him, which I'll agree with. Unconventional maybe is another one I'll go with. But I mean, this is a game where Virgil van Dijk talked about it, I think with BT Sport afterwards about, okay, what was the conversation? Because Liverpool took a while to come out of the locker room as well. And that's to be expected after a first half like they did. Virgil van Dijk said that Jurgen Klopp just said, play football, play the Liverpool way, play the way they've been playing all season, get on the ball, movement in the box, get behind the high line, but just show that they're going to play their game. And sometimes when you're in that situation and you have that 2-0 lead through 90 and you're playing another 90 and you're on the road, you almost start to worry more about holding on to what you have than playing. And I don't think Liverpool's a team who is really built to do that. I don't think Manchester City is a team that's built to do that. I think if you're a defensive team, you can handle that change. You can handle that idea of, okay, I'm just going to protect what I got instead of playing. I'm not going to risk anything. I don't think Liverpool's built that way. And when you get that thought in your head about, okay, we got 90 minutes, we got to kind of be careful here. We got to kind of hold on here because the crowd's crazy. It's going to get going. It's going to be tough. They're not comfortable playing in that manner. And I think getting into the break and it being 2-2 and just reminding them, just Klopp reminding them, hey, let's do what we do. Don't worry about the situation. Just do what we do and we'll be fine. And a lot kind of echoed the same things from Jurgen Klopp at halftime. And, you don't have to have a complicated message all the time. I think at times we kind of judge coaches on like, oh, how crazy are their tactics? The Thiago Motta 2-7-2 idea. It's like, whoa, that's wild. I think what really makes great coaches is how they handle these moments. And a lot of times it's not about, twisting yourself into a pretzel to move pieces around. It's, all right, I need to make a change here. Let's bring some life with Luis Diaz, but let's just do what we do. All the days that we've worked since, mid-July, working on playing a certain way. And for Klopp, it goes further back than that. But with this specific group, coming into the season, this is what we want to do. This is who we are. This is our identity. Just reminding them of that. Sometimes it's as simple as that. And that force of personality is what separates top managers. And Jurgen Klopp's a top manager. You get to this point, you have the quadruple still on. As much as other people get tons of credit and people love or hate Pep Guardiola, I don't think people have as much animosity towards Klopp. But those are the two guys right now that are just head and shoulders above everything else, because it's one thing to be able to play in a way like their teams do, and they both come at it from different approaches, that is just incredibly impressive. It's just impressive, the level of detail, the level of work put in. It's impressive, the work that they put in as managers. But there are managers around the world who put in that level of work and do great jobs with teams at various levels. What separates Guardiola and Klopp is being able to do it consistently when those lights are really freaking bright and when the stress is really, really high, and dealing with the highest priced of the highest priced. Because how many times have you seen a superstar be like, nah, I know what I'm doing. Shut up, coach. Go sit down. You got to convince these guys who are making insane amounts of money to follow your plan, to buy into your plan. And you've got to have the plan that's going to work too. Like, it's a lot. I think what Klopp and Guardiola do consistently just blows my mind, because you've seen so many managers in this situation. You've seen so many teams in this situation. They get punched in the mouth twice and they take a while to get up, or they don't get up. Liverpool just immediately comes out in the second half and says, fine, you want this kind of a night? All right, cool. Deal with this. And he just remembered who they were.
3 goals in 12 minutes and everything flips on its head. And, sometimes I think we have to be reminded in a certain situation, especially since we're discussing sports and staring at sports. Sometimes athletes have to be reminded that doing the simplest thing and going back to who you are is all that's needed to turn things back in your favor. Because, you do get wound up. You do get too tight sometimes. You get to thinking too much. And instead of doing, sometimes you just have to be reminded to do something and do it the way that you've done it over and over and over again, which has led to previous success. You're just reminded, hey, just do things our way, we'll be fine. And I think that, and I'll get to Burns' comment here in a second, but Klopp in this, in the situation in the locker room, calm, just reminds the guys around him instead of ranting, raving.
Well, hold on, John. I don't know if he was calm. Let's slow down about that. You weren't there, right?
No, I was not.
And I haven't heard anybody say he was calm.
Okay.
I'm not going to be calm in that situation. Let's not jump to conclusions, because you can remind them who they are and how they want to play, and definitely not be calm about it, because it's not a situation for calm.
Right.
It's important to stress Jurgen Klopp's rarely calm. First off, let's not throw that at him.
Right.
I don't think he was calm, and it doesn't change it doesn't change what he's saying, but how you say it's very important.
Right.
Sometimes you need not be calm. You just blew 2 goals in the first leg, or the first half of the second leg. You're on the road. You just blew it. I'm not going to be calm. I'm going to be telling them okay, what did we do to get here? Why are we not doing that? I'm not going to be doing it in a calm way. No. No. Jurgen Klopp is one of the best in the world, and he shows it every year that it feels like he improves and his team gets broader. Go back to when he walked into Liverpool. They were very rigid and narrow in the way that they approached the game. They did what he had done before. Didn't necessarily work as well as it is now, because now he is adapted. He is adjusted. His style of play, his philosophy, everything is much broader. He has a broader viewpoint of the game. He's been through so much more. It's expected. He's been through all these different things now, and he brings that to the table when he gets into these situations. Jurgen Klopp of 2017 might not have been able to handle this. He might have been at the same volume. He might have been at the same intensity level when he talks to the players, but he might not have had that experience to get through it. He might not have had that wisdom to get through it. He is a master at his craft. And no, I don't think he was calm by any stretch. And I don't think he needed to be calm. I think he probably needed to get into their face a little bit with why are you doing this wearing that kit? Why are you playing this way wearing that kit? I mean, you saw the second goal that Villarreal scored.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. That happens. I ain't calm. I am not calm by any stretch. Can't happen that way. And it was an awful first half. It was a bad first half. You can't let them back into the game that way. Need to get into him a little bit. I think he did. What did Bernd have to say?
Bernd, in discussing Klopp specifically, Klopp has really upped his game in knockout competitions. People forget he lost a lot of finals, et cetera, early in his career. And Bernd wraps that up by, discussing the idea that he's might be even better than Pep in these situations.
It could be. I mean, just because, they're different. They come from different approaches. He could be. I won't use the criticism that a lot of people throw at Pep, is that early in Klopp's career, he didn't have Luis Diaz coming off the bench. He didn't have Mo Salah. He didn't have the brilliant players that he does. That doesn't diminish anything about what he's learned and how he's developed. I hate when people try to throw that at Pep Guardiola. He's a great manager. Do you want him to go work at Crawley Town just to prove it to somebody out there that he can do it with Crawley Town? Yeah. You go pay him to go work at Crawley Town and see how that goes. Same with Klopp, same with Tuchel, same with all these greats. It's such a disrespectful thing to say. Like, oh, he's got great players. Klopp's got better players at Liverpool than he's ever had in his career. That's not why he's getting these results. It is 100% not why he's getting these. Getting these because he's learning. He's getting these because he's learning how to manage the situation. And he's growing. The most impressive coaches to me are the ones who continually grow. It's a frustration I have with Mourinho, who is one of the greats. Can't take that away from him. But he stagnated. He stopped. He hasn't grown for a long time. Probably won't anymore. Louis van Gaal, at some point, got old. He got old. His style got old. His ways got old. and it didn't keep going. Guardiola, for all the success he's had, continues to develop and add new wrinkles. Klopp, adding new pieces, adding new things, adding new approaches. Tuchel, I think, is still developing. I mean, these are three of the greats. Carlo Ancelotti, and what's so impressive about him as we get into City and Madrid today is Ancelotti has just shown that willingness and that adaptability to be able to walk into any team and make it work. He comes at it from a different approach. You know, it's not a knock on Carlo, but he doesn't walk in the door with the playbook that Guardiola does, that Klopp does, that Tuchel does. He doesn't walk in there with that. He walks in with, I think, an idea of what he wants to do. He has some very broad principles that he believes in about the game. But he also has his teams play different ways, and he's achieved success everywhere he's been. You can do it different ways. You can have a different approach. If you're Klopp, you're probably pretty intense a lot of the time. You're probably, very emotional a lot of the time. I think Pep does a good job with the media at times of hiding that side of him, but you get him behind closed doors. He's very emotional. He understands the emotional aspects of it. I think Carlo might understand that side of it better than anybody. The need to be a dad to some of these players, need to be a granddad to some of these players, need to be a brother to some of these players. And sometimes the same player needs all three people, and you got to be all three people to them. And you got to show them the way, and you got to have the plan, and you got to know what to do about the opponent. That's the just impressive elements at this level. These are the best of the best. And you're about to see it again today and Unai Emery deserves to be pretty close to that group. I don't know if he's in that group, but he's really close with what he's done with Villarreal. Was there a massive apology from England about Villarreal not deserving to be there or being a disgrace or any of those things? Was there a massive apology yesterday at halftime?
Of course not.
Okay. Well, that's really sad and pathetic. What Unai did with a lesser team than Liverpool and a lot of the teams he beat is amazing. Now, you get into it like we've talked about with somebody like Bielsa, with managers who can do that with that underdog and rally the troops and create the defensive strategy to be the underdog and get results. Could he walk into City? Could he walk into Liverpool? Could he walk into Real Madrid and have that success? He had success at PSG, but success like everybody else. Maybe he's not that guy, and that's okay. That's okay. That's a very small group to be that guy. It's a very small list. And you've got some of the best who've ever done it right now. And you're going to see two of the best who've ever done it today with City and Madrid. It's 4-3 City coming into it. We mentioned it yesterday. Kyle Walker could be back after missing 5 matches due to an ankle injury. He has trained. He is in Spain. Stones is sidelined, injury during the first leg. He's out. Joao Cancelo available. He missed the first leg due to suspension. Really nice to have more options than Fernandinho as a right back. And Fernandinho's been a legend for the club, and he's played everywhere. But you don't want to see Fernandinho and Vinicius again if you're Pep Guardiola. You don't want to see that matchup again. You don't want to see nutmegs without touching the ball and blowing past him. You don't need that. For Real Madrid, David Alaba, injured. Casemiro returns. What are the numbers on this game, Madrid and City today?
All right, let me double check really quickly since there were other things last time I checked. All right, so here we go. Madrid in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal, where they take about 16 different books, combine them into a number. Real Madrid, 90-minute win, plus 224. Your 90-minute draw is a plus 309, and Manchester City is a plus 108.
That's a wild number for Real Madrid with what they've done and who they are. That's crazy high. This game's a toss-up to me. The game itself, City's got the 1-goal lead coming in. I mean, if you told me this finishes in a draw and it's 2-2, I'll believe it. That's a wild number. That's disrespectful to Real Madrid. You can't disrespect Karim Benzema and Luka Modric and the veterans that Madrid has in that. It's a one-off. I mean, the game itself, and what those numbers reflect, it's not the overall tie. That's the game itself, the 90 minutes today. It's a toss-up. Saw the first leg. It's a toss-up. Vinicius, a little bit of the wild card here. Casemiro being back will help Madrid massively. I think Joao Cancelo being back for City might be the bigger impact here, because he might be on the right. Walker could be, but it wouldn't shock me if Cancelo moves over to the right to deal with Vinicius. And then what do you do in terms of moving Vinicius around to try to create that space and try to create those spots? Don't know. Chess match could be very, very interesting. Anything else we got on the Twitch pitch about the UEFA Champions League variant today?
You've got folks commenting on who's back and who's not. Obviously, Ricky Ricardo commenting on Casemiro returning, and Burns saying yes, not having to play Fernandinho at right back will help.
A little bit. It will definitely help. I mean, he's a legend, and he can do about anything you need, but he has limits, and those limits were stretched beyond belief by Vinicius and his pace. I'm intrigued to see who ends up dealing with Vinicius. Just think it might be Cancelo. Not sure. Dylan Butler will join us in about 15 minutes or so, running a little bit late. Busy times at MLSsoccer.com and everything else Dylan's doing, because he's doing lacrosse. He's doing all kinds of stuff these days. So he's going to be with us in about 15 minutes or so, and we'll get deep into ConcaChampions Champions League with him. Some other news on the board today from the worldwide portion of the game. This whole Chelsea situation, again, not a surprise that the England media is making it possibly more complicated than it is.
Yeah.
Or not telling the whole story when you want to blast those headlines out about this loan repayment or whatever. It does seem like it's just complicated. It's just complicated because of, it's a loan, and if you don't repay it, what happens with that in terms of the books and all of this, and you got to kind of deal with it. And, I think I don't think Abramovich, from what I've read today, after the initial blast of it's not going to happen now, he's demanding repayment. I don't think that's actually what happened. I don't think it's quite that simple. I don't know how they're going to deal with it, though, but they know they're running out of time. And by all accounts, nobody involved in this wants it to get down to the deadline, which is the end of the month, with the license of operating Chelsea Football Club. Nobody wants it to threaten Chelsea's existence. And if they don't get a deal done by May 31st, it threatens Chelsea's existence to participate next season.
Yes, it does.
So I don't think anybody wants that. I don't know if, honestly, anybody in the media talking about it knows exactly where things stand with this at this point. But you do have 1.5 billion or so on the books as a loan from Roman Abramovich and or his companies or whatever. Again, I'm not sure. Of all the particulars. You have to have something to do with that. Like, it has to be dealt with, I think. Yeah. I don't think you can just do the deal without it. There's still the question of, all right, because that's going to affect valuations and stuff and such. Like, do you, and I think this has been thrown out there, do you basically put it in a hold? And because it's I'm assuming, with the pricing we're talking about, part of the conversation about the price of the club. So is that money put in a hold until perhaps it can be paid back? I mean, we've had the question from the beginning is, all right, you're paying $3 billion or $4 billion or $3.5 billion for the club. Who are you paying? By the way, who is being paid for said club? Do we really know?
I think the government is raising their hand at the moment and saying it's
how? But yeah, how? Like that? I mean, it's a little complicated.
Yeah,
and it's confusing and it's annoying that it's gotten to this point that is this complicated, and it's still this complicated. And look, maybe it just really is that difficult to sort it out. But okay, so the government's going to take the money that's going to be paid for a business that was owned by somebody else, but The government didn't claim ownership of the business, because if they did, then there wouldn't be a license to operate it that expires. So how are they claiming the revenue from a sale? You know what I mean? That doesn't seem to really make any logical sense. And then if that's how it's going, then you kind of make it very understandable why the previous owner would be like, what? Wait a minute. What? No.
Yeah.
No, I put this money into it. What are you gonna do for me here? If you're gonna claim that it's your club now, but it's not, but it is, but it's not. Anyway, I don't know if the government is actually saying they're gonna take the money. That's the thing. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, Ben Jacobs at CBS Sports did a deep dive into it yesterday.
And Ben Jacobs said that the government is saying, yes, that money will be ours, and we will do whatever with it.
Yeah.
Quoted. Is that what he said?
Yeah, Jacobs says Abramovich originally promised to write off the debt, but
no, I'm talking about the government portion of it. We'll get to the Abramovich part in a second.
Yeah, he has, but because the sanctions, since there are sanctions against him, he can't legally write off the debt, and so he has to agree to a deal with the UK government to.
Yeah, that's okay. That's different than where I was. Sorry, I don't think you were understanding what I was asking you. Okay. So you have a debt that legally he can't write off.
Right.
So it's got to be something done with it because it's sitting there.
Yes.
So he can't put his hand up and say, yeah, I don't want it. So instead of the headlines that yesterday were, he's demanding money, it's not actually that simple, correct?
Correct.
England!
Yes, exactly.
It's absurd. Basically, that's how I feel every time. So whatever, then they'll figure it out at some point. If they don't by May 31st, then yeah, have fun in the summer transfer window when you can't operate. Okay. Is there anything else on this or on the Twitch pitch you want to get into then?
I mean, just, I know it makes your head explode.
No, go ahead.
No, it makes my head explode.
Yes, my head's exploded a long time ago when it comes to this.
But no, just from the Jacobs article quickly. Abramovich has to agree to a deal with the government to convert that debt into equity. And then the leader in the clubhouse, the Bowley Group, would have to take on that debt at book value, even if it weakens the value of the club. And so that's
because it can't be written off. They can't act like it didn't exist.
Right.
If this was a normal sale, you could forgive it, basically. If it's whatever entity and it's a normal situation, and whoever makes the loan says, you know what, I forgive the loan, then that person's going to get value of forgiving the loan. They're going to get their whatever tax purposes and all that for that. But in this case, they legally cannot forgive the loan. So it's going to have to show up somewhere. And it sounds like it's going to hit Chelsea and hurt Chelsea. And if I'm reading the tea leaves of everything correctly, again, after the headlines yesterday that were incredibly misleading, I'm getting the sense that Roman Abramovich doesn't want it to hurt Chelsea. Because, I mean, if you're in a situation and you can't legally forgive it, and ultimately it ends up on the books of Chelsea and hurting their value, that doesn't help anybody. And he's not wanting the money back, but he's not wanting Chelsea's value to be diminished because of it either. I think. I might be wrong. Might be giving him too much credit. But, yeah, this is a lot more complicated than headlines on Twitter and headlines in all these other places. They got to get it sorted out. They should have been further along with this sort of stuff. It's just somebody's got to sit down in a room with lawyers and with bankers and just get all the parameters done. It shouldn't be this difficult at this stage, and yes, you're probably going to have to get Abramovich at least on the call. And if you need to do this to where nobody knows you're doing it, but you're doing it because you can't legally deal with him, but you need to, just do it. Just do it. I watched 24 for like 5-6 years. Okay. I know they do things that we don't know about.
Yes.
Just have the meeting somewhere. Get it done. Good grief. Call in Jack Bauer. He'll get Chelsea sold. Jeez.
Everybody knows which yacht Roman Abramovich is in. Have your Zoom call with him from the yacht and get everything.
Well, no, you can't have it where everybody knows the yacht is. That's the whole point. You got to go to a different yacht.
He's on a yacht somewhere.
You don't go to his yacht. You don't go anywhere like that. You go somewhere completely unexpected. Have it in Edmonton. Just do it.
The Maldives.
What else?
Pilgrim says, he's asking, there's never been a precedent set for any sort of similar transaction to what's happening at Chelsea, right? He says it seems like a cluster.
There hasn't been, and we do need to keep that in mind and give them a little bit of slack, but it has been a while since they've been working on this. And while they were doing the actual bidding process, I don't know, maybe they could have worked on these things too and actually had two groups work. I don't know. It's crazy talk. No, there hasn't been anything of this magnitude ever that I am aware of, not in the sports world, which has its own peculiarities when you're dealing with the business side of it and all of that. So it's complicated. It is probably being a little unfair, but I do feel like there are enough smart people that are involved in this, or at least well-paid people who say they're smart, that could get something done sooner than this. And we're not having these daily headlines of, he wants his loan back. Oh, my goodness.
Could Chelsea be out of the Premier League?
What happens if they are? Are they going to have a dispersal draft of their players? What happens? Are they going to reignite the Chivas USA franchise in London? Oh, my goodness.
Chivas London.
Just stop it.
Chivas
What else do we have? Please. Something not Chelsea.
Okay. Well, Nick's is under the firm belief of the matchup today with Manchester City and Real Madrid that the team that scores first will take it.
Oh, I don't know if I buy into that, Nick's. Not with these two, because I don't think either one is rattled if the other one scores first. No, I'm going to go against that, just because we've seen Madrid not give up in these situations. We've seen Benzema have his moment of brilliance back against the wall. I would probably be more worried if City conceded first or fell behind, maybe is the better way to put it. I'd be more worried about City coming back than Madrid. But I'm not really worried about that because of their quality. So, no, I don't think it's that simple. It almost feels like the reverse. It almost feels like a situation of whoever has the last big opportunity is the one who's going to win this. Because, I think they can answer each other all day. So who's going to get the last opportunity that might do it? I think they both have the mentality to come back if they fall behind. I really do. I think the things that I keep coming back to here, you're never going to lock up Karim Benzema, but you've got to limit the service to him as best as you can. If I'm City, I think you got to get a little physical, a little nasty with Luka Modric. You got to test him physically. You can't let him dictate the play. Vinicius, again, you're gonna have to deal with him. You can't, put him in a box, but having Cancelo or Walker or somebody who can run with him a little bit will help. That'll definitely help. He won't be able to kill you like he did on that one run. For City, it's a little bit of the conversation we had about Liverpool. I think they need to be themselves. I think they need to come into this and act like it's 0-0 and just play their game and not play tight, not play, like, oh, we have a 1-goal lead, let's protect it. No, just be yourselves. And if they're themselves, I think they'll dominate the possession. I think they'll have the ball. I think Madrid will be okay with that. And I think you got to be protected with when you turn it over and when they can potentially break. You're going to have to commit some tactical fouls. You're going to have to do those things. But they need to be themselves. And they have to be reminded of being themselves. This is one where I think the tactics are a little secondary for Guardiola. I think he has to manage the vibe of the group. And that's going to be the important thing. And if he does that, they're in the advantage. It's not a big one, but they're in the advantage. I think they're the better team on the whole. But you just can't quantify the experience and the attitude that Real Madrid has. You can't quantify it. It's not something that you can sit here and, okay, at right back, you have this advantage. At left back, you have this advantage. And at central midfield, you have no. It's what Madrid has is special. And if they fall behind, they don't care. They don't care. they can come back on you really fast. So I think City just has to be themselves, and if they control the game and play their game, I think they go through.
One Ricky Ricardo comment, then I've got a question for you about Carlo Ancelotti. Ricky Ricardo says Madrid has usually had the last chance in these games.
It's a credit to Carlo. It's a credit to the way that they play, and I think the biggest thing, maybe more than because it's kind of hard to plan for having the last chance. I think what it is Madrid capitalizes on their big moments. The moments aren't too big for them. What are you going to put in front of Karim Benzema that he hasn't seen before? What are you going to put in front of Luka Modric that he hasn't seen before? These guys have done it all. Thibaut Courtois, you got a great goalkeeper who, if the last chance goes the other way, he can make the play. It's not so much that they find a way to get the last chance; it's that they make it count. And you got big game players, and the question you would have about City, while some of the incredible talent, is, are they big moment guys? When the lights are their brightest, do they get blinded, or do they handle it? That's why somebody like Michael Jordan is just one of the most unbelievable athletes, because he did both. The greats are great all the time. The greats are great when they're playing on a cold, windy night in Stoke. They're great when they do that.
Jordan got 38 against Stoke one night, I believe.
Stupid morons. They're great when that happens, but the greats are able to do that on a Wednesday night, midweek league game. Doesn't have a lot of bright lights, but you play great. The true greats are able to take it to the next level and do that in a final, in a semifinal situation. And you go back to somebody like Jordan, you can look at the great moments and great games he had in the middle of the NBA season, and you can go and look at Game 7, Game 6 of the finals and what he did. You can see both. I think Madrid has those guys. Madrid has those guys that win leagues, that do all the things you got to do to win a league, where you got to be great in that, game 20 on the schedule. And it might be somewhere, and there might be 10, 15,000 people there, and it might be raining, it might be cold. They don't care. They play great. They get the job done. But they've got guys who show up in big moments. For City, that's frankly the question. And it's a fair one, because they don't have this trophy. They don't have the Champions League. This is when the lights are their brightest. They've got great players. And over the course of a season, when you have a lot of great players, you're probably going to have a lot of chances to win. But in this game, you've got a 1-goal advantage walking in the door. You got 90 minutes, maybe 120, maybe penalties. Can you do it then? Because your great advantage of how much talent you have, it gets washed away when you have less time to show it. So then that mentality creeps in. Then that ability to block out those bright lights and block out the pressure and still be great. Can Phil Foden do that? Can Kevin De Bruyne do that? I don't know. I mean, I think they're incredibly talented, and many others. But can they be at their absolute best in a tough situation tonight in Madrid? Because I think Luka Modric can. I've seen it. I think Karim Benzema can. Say what you want. If you got to turn to Gareth Bale, he's shown it in these moments. I believe it with those guys. I need to see it a little bit with the Fodens, with the Grealishes, with the De Bruynes. And I think Kevin De Bruyne might be the best player in the world right now. You got to see it in this moment. It's great to do it in, game 20 when you're playing at Norwich, or, playing at whoever in a mid-table Premier League match that you win 5-0 and it helps you win the league. That's very important. This isn't that. Madrid's shown they can do it. Does City show they can do it tonight? I don't know. We'll find out.
My question for you about Carlo Ancelotti, I was trying to figure out the best adjective in this question. Do you think that Carlo Ancelotti is underappreciated for what he has accomplished in all of the different places that he's been?
We've talked about this for weeks now. it's complicated because now that question's been asked so many times that maybe it's spinning the other way. I think Carlo is one of the greatest winners in football history. I think he's one of the greatest winners. Would I put him as one of the greatest coaches? No, I'd probably put him a step below that. But you look at how many trophies he's got. He's third to Mourinho and Guardiola. Guardiola's got the most. Mourinho's next. He's obviously in the conversation. I think people who have tried to diminish him this year specifically, like, oh, he went in and he parked the bus in Paris. What's he doing? I think those people should probably shut up and maybe have by now. But no, I don't think he's at the level of Guardiola and Mourinho across the board in terms of coaching. In terms of winning, he's right there. Klopp, I think, will pass him as a coach because I think he'll have the wins to go along with it over time, maybe over the lifespan of his Liverpool contract. But no, I think Carlo, I think he was disrespected at times. And he probably still is in some circles of it. I mean, look, this, again, I think we get skewed a little bit because in the United States, where do we hear the most from? We hear the most from England because of the language. And when you've got takes like Villarreal should be embarrassed to be here and stuff like that, that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
Those are coming from large reputable outlets. So are you getting maybe disrespect in some of those circles for Carlo? Yeah, probably, sadly. But there's nobody who's won like him at the league level. He's got all 5 of the major European leagues. Nobody else has that. Pep and Mourinho haven't been in all of them. So, I mean, you do have to consider that too. But he's done that. He's a great coach. He's maybe a better manager than coach, if that makes sense. But he's incredible. And he's going to be one of the all-time greats. I don't think he's the greatest, but I think he's one of the all-time greats for sure.
Yeah, Bernd is referring to the matchup this afternoon as the last good no-system team, meaning Real Madrid, against the ultimate system team, Manchester City.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Ultimate system team, you could put Liverpool in that conversation too. I don't think it's ultimate. I think it is a little bit of the different ways that they try to do what they do, for sure. And Madrid is far more broad in their approach. And look, both can have success. You know, both can have, honestly, the ultimate system team might have been Villarreal in the way that they were maybe the most rigid in the way that they played to get here. But you don't have to do what everybody else is doing, and you have to match the group that you have. And I think Carlo does that with Real Madrid spectacularly. And it will be really interesting to see what wrinkles he has to try to deal with City. I don't think he just throws a team out there and it's vanilla. He's going to have some ideas about what to do to disrupt City. Is that sitting back more? Is that kind of going a little bit back and forth of trying to sit back and then trying to get on the front foot a bit? You know, is he going to move Vinicius around? Is he going to move Modric around? I'm really curious to see how he handles it, but I don't think he walks in and just sets up a lineup and says, go play. Just, you're fine, whatever. He's not as rigid in the way that he wants to approach it as maybe some others, which can make it a little more difficult at times. Like, you know, you don't have a clear playbook on how to deal with him. We'll see where that goes. That starts at 3:00, but late tonight it is CCL Fever, ConcaChampions, second leg of the final. It's 2-2 going to Seattle, packed house. They're finding folding chairs wherever they can, and Dylan Butler is going to help us preview it. Welcome in, Dylan. How are you? Things a little busy for you these days, huh?
Little bit. That's all right though.
Yeah, it's good times. You got the Rangers swag going right now. Very
especially
good.
after the triple OT loss last night, man.
Little tired. Yeah.
Late night.
I think the goalie made 137 saves, around that amount. I'm not sure.
Is that exaggerated or is that real?
Oh, I mean, last night I think it was the Pittsburgh goalies had close to 70 saves.
That's absurd.
Yeah, but Shesterkin had, I think, 76 himself or something crazy.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it was nuts last night. It was a triple overtime, or nothing like game one going to triple overtime. Yeah.
Yeah, sets the series up well.
Yeah, definitely. we'll get into a couple other things from MLS as we go too, but let's really spend time on Seattle and Pumas. What an insane ride last week. First off, you get the penalty given early, and it's here we go, CONCACAF referees, woo! And then by the end of it, it's we love the CONCACAF referees.
Right, yeah.
With I think all the penalties, but maybe the first one it's disputed, but I can see how you get there. The two that Seattle get, clear cut, you give them, and you're 2-2 walking back to Seattle in one of the wildest nights in CONCACAF history.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because I think Dr. Joe had like a great line, right? Like he's like, it is clear cut, absolutely a penalty. They're not going to give it because
welcome to
all the situations, right? That are there, right? Where you are and everything, where you are in the match. But yeah, I mean, it's deep breath, but it sets up Seattle well.
Mm-hmm.
The cautionary tale here is it's the same exact scoreline that Real Salt Lake had many moons ago, right? Against Monterrey, and we know how that one ended. So no one is celebrating yet, right? No one's saying the ding dong, the witch is dead, right? It's essentially it's 90 minutes winner take all, right? So a lot to play for Seattle, but I think, and we'll break it down a little more, but I think Seattle this year is better situated to deal with that second leg and this series than Salt Lake was back then.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, we were talking about the UEFA Champions League coming in, and you have a team like Madrid with all the veterans, all the guys who have been around the block, and the moment's not going to be too big for them. You could say the same about Seattle tonight. When you've got guys with the pedigree that Brian Schmetzer has to lean on in these moments, I don't think anything Pumas can throw at them will be overwhelming. I think they're going to handle the moment on display tonight really well, maybe better than any MLS team that's been in a situation.
Yeah, and I think they're constructed for this moment, right? Yep. They've got a core that's been together. That core has played in big club matches, in big matches for their countries, in World Cup qualifiers, in World Cups. So it's we talked about it before, but Garth Lagerwey did all of his work before the start of the season. And he made no bones about it. It was because of pointing this ship in this direction of the Champions League, right? And he knows better than most because he was the guy who led the way at Salt Lake back in the day as well. And I thought he had some great comments. I know we have a story up on MLS soccer.com, a bunch of stories, obviously, but in one of the ones where he spoke to the extra time guys, he talked about the differences, right, from that run to this run. And he said, think about it then. Monterrey had probably 5 times the salary budget that we had at Salt Lake at the time, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think it's necessarily dead even right now, but it's certainly a lot closer for Seattle now than it was before, right? So that's a factor. And then also, just as Jason has just mentioned, the experience factor. There's better players in MLS now, guys who have a better pedigree than they did, what was it, 12 years ago, right? When Salt Lake made that run as well. So that was more of a Cinderella run, I think, for Salt Lake. And this is more sort of, you expect a Seattle to be in this situation. So in those senses, it's certainly different. But bottom line again is they've got to get the job done over 90 minutes.
Because you're looking, if my memory's right, and it rarely is, with Seattle, you're looking at 6 players on their roster who either are DPs or were DPs in the MLS sense that are currently on their roster now. So that kind of experience in multiple ways, I think, helps out here, even though Pumas in the past when they've had their back against the wall, whether it's in league or in other competitions, they've responded in these situations. So it's an interesting chess match here where Seattle has that experience, and while the money, if you were to take, I guess, those 6 DPs in their prime, I think that money, if you looked at it that way, it would be pretty much right on.
Yeah, I think so. And even if you've got guys who aren't quite DPs, right? Like, their center back duo, right? These guys have played in massive cup competitions in South America, and they've played in these kind of experience games. And Stefan Fry isn't a DP, but he's been in how many of these big games, right? Whether it's MLS Cup or through the playoffs or other Champions League runs or, Open Cup. So, I just think, and to tease a little bit, we'll have a pretty cool story coming up. We're just kind of going through it just now. That's why I was a little bit late, by Matt Doyle, kind of the blueprint, he calls it, of building a team, right? And building a team that can have success year over year, and talking about Seattle's model sort of for doing that. And, there's, I think he's got like 6 or 7 sub principles. So it's a pretty deep dive, but, bottom line is they kind of tick all the boxes between, making sure they've got MLS experienced guys who they spend the money on, a DP or DPs in attacking positions. They make sure they've got a solid number 6, right? And they've always have, whether it was Ozzy Alonso to Svensson to now obviously with João Paulo. So they don't heavily rely, but they do give those opportunities to the young guys in their system. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's more to it as well, but those are just some of the principles that have a Seattle here on the precipice of history, right? So I think it's an interesting read, and I think it's huge credit to Adrian Hanauer and obviously Lagerwey for kind of building this juggernaut, if you will.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too with that, and I don't know if it's in there, but you do have to be willing to jump out of that plan when the time is right. And Seattle's a team that did that this year. We've typically seen Seattle do their business in the summer. Lagerwey's talked about it. That's where they feel like they can get the best deals. It's where they can get the most bang for their buck. They've generally been a second half team in MLS. They've been a team that, first half, you're kind of figuring it out. Maybe the young guys get a longer run, those sorts of things. And then you're going to bring in somebody impactful in the summer. And there you go. Boom. You're a team to watch in the playoffs. This year, with where they were coming in and with what was on deck, a CONCACAF Champions League that you looked at who was in it. You looked at who was in it out of Mexico. It was a little bit different tier of teams, and it was a very winnable moment for Seattle. And they went and they took care of their business earlier than they typically do. You have to be willing to adapt as well in this league, especially.
And they did so also by making history by signing the first DP free agent, right? In Rusnak.
Yeah.
So think
that's
about
a move they would have never made. That's a move I don't think they would have ever made. And maybe it took him a minute to kind of figure out where he fits into this team because he's playing a really different role than he did in Salt Lake. But that midfield of João Paulo, Albert Rusnak, Nicolas Lodeiro, all of them can sit deeper when they need to. All of them can get forward and impact the game. It's an incredible midfield triangle in this league and in this region.
Yeah, and then when you push forward too, right? The guys you have on the wings, a guy in Rui Diaz who you've got to splash the cash for, and it's been a great investment, right? For them. So all important factors for them, and it's also not to say certainly that it's the way to do it because other teams have different ways, right? Philly, for example, instead of maybe spending big money, they're developing within their system. Others are a mix, right? NYCFC has spent on younger guys and developed them a little bit through their own system. and have gotten good bang for their buck. But yeah, we're talking about Seattle, and that's the way that they've done it. And yes, I think that's the point that you hit, Jason, is that like in a Rusnak, they go outside of a little bit of their comfort zone and do that business and get an MLS proven player and sign him to a DP contract, and they do it before the start of the season.
And then, Brian Schmetzer at times not afraid to bring in the younger players that have come up through the system like Reagan and Vargas. So you end up with this, I don't know if you want to call it a developmental hybrid, where you bring in the DPs like Rusnak, but at the same time, you've got the system beneath you that you've been building with Tacoma and beyond, where if you need those younger players in situations to step in, they do that. No fear for Schmetzer to do that if it comes to having them in a starting 11.
And they do that without having so much pressure on their shoulders, right? Like, it's one thing to start like 8 homegrown guys and just throw them out there and sink or swim. I feel like in Seattle, there's so much support around those guys that the expectations, and I'm sure it's part of either at training or before a game, Schmetzer just lays it out like, do your job. Don't worry about what's around you. We're going to support you. You're fine. No pressure on you. And obviously it's worked out, right? Like the John, the guys that you've mentioned have been great and have been integral in this. You look at another guy like a Freddie Montero, right? They signed him like in his mid-30s, right? Whatever. And he's been great for them, right? And just filling that exact role that they need, that kind of depth guy, as Rui Diaz is dealing with his injuries as well. So, I think that they've ticked a lot of the boxes, and they've done a really good job. I think it's certainly it's to me, I guess to us, because we're talking about it, but it's super interesting. I think just when you peel back and you look at sort of how this whole thing has been built, it's interesting. And one thing I love about this league is there's different ways you can do it. There's different tactics you can use, but also different ways you can build your roster. So I think it makes it. I think the styles make for a fun fight.
I mean, it is May 4th, so I figure we have to kind of cross the streams here just a little bit. So let's bring Mike Conti into the conversation. Mike Conti joining the show, and Mike, you guys can talk hockey in a minute.
I thought that intro with the cool thing, and I thought that was from me.
There's a few of them.
Everybody?
A lot of people get them, Dylan. I'm sorry.
Dylan, did you stay up to watch that whole thing last night?
Yes.
I did.
Oh, well, it's only game 1, but what a start to the series. Holy cow. Amazing. And what a challenge by Pittsburgh. I mean, it looked like
they had to make it. I thought right away, like, funny things, the first thing out of my mouth was, is that goal going to stay?
Right.
I thought goaltender interference. Wearing this as I am, I didn't think that it was, and they show all the replays, and NHL's version of VAR kind of struck the Rangers there, but
there are elements of NHL VAR that I wish MLS would benchmark, including the central aspect of it and taking the decision away from the on-ice official. If the decision had been taken away from the on-field referee in Miami 2 weeks ago, Atlanta United probably gets a draw as opposed to a win. These are discussions we can have later. I don't want to deflect from the obvious big match coming up tonight, which of course is Toronto and Cincinnati.
Yes, we're gonna spend the rest of the time.
That's your appetizer, though. That's like your mozzarella sticks to.
That's right.
Is it really mozzarella sticks? Wouldn't it be something maybe lower on the scale?
That's celery, carrots, and dip. I
think it might be complimentary.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, Toronto and Cincinnati fans. Yeah. I want to get into a little bit of this with everybody, because I remember in 2011, just me being the longtime nerd about this league that I have been, like how excited I was in this very moment where Real Salt Lake, a very different kind of a team than Seattle, and MLS is in a very different place in 2011, is on the precipice. They get the result that they needed away. You're thinking that this is it. This is where it's going to happen. It had been 11 years at that point. Now it's been 22. And it's a game-changing moment for the league. And we've talked about how MLS has grown, and we've talked about how MLS on pretty much all of the metrics but trophies is right there with Mexico, is very comparable to the bulk of Argentina and Brazil. Of course, at the very top, there's some teams that separate it. But this is what I think eliminates a lot of the argument against for a lot of people if they get it done tonight, Seattle.
And in some ways, too, better when you think of how they've been able to sell players, right? They've done a better job, much better job than Mexico has in terms of getting young guys and turning them around and making profit on those guys.
Yeah, I think where MLS is, it is in a lot of ways it's past Liga MX, and Liga MX is learning from things MLS does, and MLS has to complete that conversation. And honestly, you get this done tonight. What I felt like was a great idea, no matter what, with Leagues Cup, it becomes a bigger deal if you knock Pumas off and Seattle gets the CONCACAF Champions League trophy tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game changer for MLS, because that's sort of like the last hurdle, right? Like, you know, the argument in other competitions was, it's a made up competition and you know, Superliga or whatever it was so big deal. You guys, MLS beating a Liga MX team, but this is you know what you get measured by, right? Like, this is the competition where we've said it before. Both of these leagues have made it super important. And yeah, I mean, this is what you're judged by. So I think from a league perspective, you need that. You need an MLS team to win it before you start now going into this expanded Leagues Cup, and it gives it so much more juice, right? If you will, coming off of the Champions League.
But it also needs to happen consistently. Like, if Seattle does pull this off tonight, it's a great accomplishment. It's historic. It's another giant step forward for the league. It's not going to mean anything, though, if Liga MX wins the next 10 CONCACAF Champions Leagues, right? And if Liga MX dominates Leagues Cup, you know, this needs to happen consistently, and it goes back to the broader discussion of what the Major League Soccer can do to make itself more competitive in these competitions with Mexico. So I don't want to demean the accomplishment tonight if Seattle can pull this off, but I think back to when George Mason made the Final Four in 2006 is like the first truly mid-major of the modern era to make an NCAA Final Four. And you had Butler and Virginia Commonwealth kind of follow suit and do that, but it didn't really change the paradigm of college basketball, where mid-majors were constantly competing for national collegiate basketball championships. And I don't include Gonzaga in the mid-major category, by the way. I think they spend and act like a big program in a small conference. So that's
what the difference, though, Mike. Like, where I'm at with the difference is I feel like the level is the same now. I really feel like the spending level. I think what Garth Lagerwey said about the difference with what RSL spent to Monterrey in 2011 to now what Seattle spends with Pumas. I mean, it's roughly in the ballpark. It's the same. They might do it a different way because of DPs and not having DPs, but they're spending about the same. The level's about the same. I think it's a mental block at this point. Honestly, I think the issues that in competition between MLS and Liga MX, it's not mid-majors trying to close the gap. It's MLS handling the pressure, handling the moment.
And I'm sorry for comparing MLS.
No. It's a good comparison.
That's not what I meant.
No, totally. It's absolutely a good comparison. But I feel like the difference for me is if they get it done tonight, it's almost like that mental block is blown up, and there shouldn't be a reason that they're not trading off trophies. I don't think MLS has to win 10 in a row, but I think it has to be truly competitive when you go into Champions League and say, any of the MLS participants can win it, and any of the Liga MX participants can win it, because I think then they're on much more equal footing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And just to go back to a broader point about comparing Major League Soccer and Liga MX, something that I think we've talked about a lot on this show, the top teams in Liga MX, I think, are ahead of the top teams in Major League Soccer. But the bottom teams in Major League Soccer, I think, are ahead of the bottom teams in Liga MX.
Yeah.
By a wide margin, a wider margin than the top.
Hugely wide margin. So if you take the two leagues on balance, top through bottom, Major League Soccer stacks up very favorably against Liga MX right now. It's just been those super clubs in Mexico that spend like crazy, at least pre-pandemic, who spent like crazy, that have been difficult to take down in these international competitions. But I think that's one thing that Leagues Cup's going to start revealing next year, is that, the bottom 2/3 of MLS will look very, very favorable compared to the bottom half of Liga MX. I really strongly believe that.
Yeah, I can buy into that. One thing, Dylan, that makes this matchup unique, we've talked about Seattle and their veteran, components here, and the moment's not going to be too big for them, but the same applies to Pumas. I mean, this is a team that has been not Club America, not really consistently even Cruz Azul in Mexico City, and not recently at the level of Tigres and Monterrey and Chivas. They've been below that. They've been a little bit of the scrappy team. And this current version of Pumas has that in their DNA. They weren't expected to get this far. They haven't been expected to be this good. They're not going to be overawed by anything that Seattle throws at them tonight either. And when you have Dineno up top, a guy who can win this tournament for Pumas, this sets up to be a really compelling match tonight.
100%. And we talk all about the history chasing that Seattle's doing, but Pumas is like, hey man, us too, right? Like, we're
80s
we're trying
was
to
the
win
last
this.
time they won one of these.
Yeah. So I don't think 67,000 at Lumen Field is going to affect them at all, right? And they also know they've got a pretty simple job to do. Yeah, they've conceded 2 away goals, but you know what? 1-0, they win this whole thing, right? And that's the same as Monterrey did to Real Salt Lake. So, the blueprint is there for them as well. So, I think they've been energized by all this talk of Seattle being favorites as well, whether or not Schmetzer and Seattle want to say that they are, right, in this series. But that's worked out well for Pumas as well, right? Like you don't want to call us favorites. We'll be that scrappy underdog team, just like we are in our league as well.
Yeah, it's the final where nobody wants to be the favorite.
Yeah.
John, last one for Dylan from you before we release Dylan to get back into full CCL prep mode.
Exactly. So, we talked about super clubs and their spending habits, and Seattle and their imagination in spending habits. What would you do if you were MLS economics czar for a day? To the DPs, to the spending limits, to caps, things like that, to try and get closer to what the super clubs in Liga MX are spending these days, to get more on par with that? Or would you leave the system as it is?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about preseason, right? We had that cool sort of exercise of MLS in, what was it, like 5 years or 10 years, right? Or I don't think it's a perfect example, but I'm all like, I feel like if you want to let the team spend, like you have a cap, and if you go above that cap, now it's like in a Major League Baseball, right? You've got that tax against clubs. So the teams that are always going to spend, Atlanta, NYCFC, Seattle, right, so on and so forth, let them spend. And don't let them be hamstrung by teams that don't want to spend. And then the teams that don't want to spend, then will get money for that. I think the league in general likes having the parity, but what? Like, I'm all for having these clubs, man. Like, let's have the Liverpools and the Manchester Cities and Man Uniteds. And the way that if you're a smaller club, spend then, like invest in your club, invest in your talent, and then you can also push your way up.
I like the luxury tax idea because it can have more parity than those other leagues, but it's not restrictive parity, which
Right.
that's the part I don't like. If you can find a way to incentivize the spending and allow teams to do it, then you're going to create better teams and a better product. But if that can also in some way, I don't know if it becomes like a certain element of GAM or cap space for these other teams or whatever, or how it gets reallocated. I don't know. They can figure that out. A lot of smarter people than me. But that'd be really interesting. I think with Leagues Cup, that conversation is going to come up more than ever. I think if tonight doesn't go MLS's way, that conversation is going to be one of the ones tomorrow that everybody's having.
No doubt.
Even if it doesn't really apply in this case, in my mind. I don't think that has anything to do with tonight. I think tonight is about getting the job done, and Seattle is in perfect place to get it done. Do you think they get it done, Dylan?
Oh, man.
I think they do. I think it goes to extra time.
I'm going to regret saying this, but I think that they do.
I think they do. I think it goes to extra time. I don't think it goes to penalties. I think they get it done in extra time. I think it's going to be a late night in Seattle. Buckle up.
I think they do. But, you know, I it's almost like when we were talking about the national team, right, and all the struggles and, you know, will they make the World Cup? You're like, yeah, I think they will. So it's kind of like you take a deep breath and you hope and you cross your fingers. And I think Seattle will find the way.
I'm pretty much right there with you in how I feel about it. We'll talk about that next week. We'll actually talk about the MLS schedule next week. We'll spend a lot of time on Toronto and Cincinnati because that's the game of the week for sure.
That's a big one, man. Second leg.
Big time.
True.
Big time. We'll do all of that next week. Dylan, man, thanks for the time. Appreciate it so much.
All right, guys.
Be good, Dylan.
Make sure you're following him, Dylan_Butler on social media. Make sure you're following Mike Conti 929 on social media as well. Do we have to talk about Atlanta and Montreal, Mike? Is there anything we need to cover there? I know we'll talk about it on stoppage time.
Yeah, we'll get into it on stoppage time. I think everything that has that's been needed to be said has been said. So I don't know. I mean, again, it's frustrating. I don't think they played poorly. They're getting frustrated. That worries me. I don't want to see them panic. All of that. But let's move on. You got a really good chance to hang something on Chicago this weekend. Team that had 2 red cards.
Yeah.
On Saturday, a team that has only scored once in the last 500 minutes, I want to say. So I'm not panicking. I hope that the players and the front office don't panic. You're at the end of your transfer window today. Feels like things are quiet at the moment.
Yeah, I haven't really
seen or felt anything bubbling.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing. I think some suggestions have been made in the public sphere in the last 48 hours about a move or two that could be made that I think would amount to panicking. And I don't want to see that.
No,
I think they are certainly in better shape than their record indicates. I do understand why patience might be running a little bit thinner this week compared to last week among supporters, and no one is wrong for feeling that way.
But you know what's weird about that, Mike? And I people can feel however they want to feel. I'm not telling anybody what's right and wrong about how to feel anymore. I give up on that. Feel whatever you want to feel. But where I get agitated is where people's feelings are used to override facts. And that doesn't work. I'm sorry. No matter how you feel, that doesn't work. If Atlanta went out and got Matthew Hoppe, which is one rumor that has been out there as a U22 initiative player, that's not a panic move to me. You get him as a U22 and you know what promise he has had and you know what Mallorca just paid for him, and it's U22, so the transfer fee doesn't matter. You've got the room for it. That's a low cap hit. That's not a panic move. That's just a good move if you can do it. So I know which move you're talking about. I know where it's coming from.
Yes.
That would be a panic move.
I think you only have to count for 10 seconds before realizing that was a panic move.
Yes. Like Hoppe wouldn't be that.
No.
I'm sure there's others that could be. There's other moves that we have not heard anything about, that I don't know anything about, that if they make it, it's not necessarily a panic move. It's the last day of the window. If a deal comes up that's a good one, you do it.
But I think the other thing too, Jason, like, let's forget the move aspect for a second. Just, the other thing I don't want to see them do is change their philosophy on what they're doing now. And they shouldn't.
No.
And it would be very, very easy to listen to the noise. Is it working? You haven't won since April 2nd in league play. Bunch of guys are getting hurt. Is it working? It'd be very, very easy to listen to that chatter and that noise. And I really hope they don't do that.
They won't.
Because again, and maybe I'm just way too positive, but the performances continue to get better.
Yep.
Was the performance against Montreal better than the performance against Miami? It's a little bit harder to judge that because Montreal is so much better than Miami, especially when they play at home.
Yes, and that's why, and that's where getting back to facts of, like people being more frustrated this week than last week. No, I think you can't do that to yourself, because going to Montreal is a completely different conversation. And honestly, I mean, people looked at Miami based off what they saw last year out of Miami, not what they saw when Atlanta walked into Fort Lauderdale, which was a team on a winning streak. So, I mean, all of this, the Eastern Conference is insane. The Eastern Conference is absolutely insane, with 1st through 14th being separated by 9 points right now. Every game's going to be tough, but on the road it's tougher. And in Montreal, it's one of the toughest.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that place is a fortress for them. I mean, they've gotten results in almost 3/4 of the matches they've played at Stade Saputo, if I'm remembering that correctly. So
yeah, it's something like that. I know they've got over 70 wins at Stade Saputo in their history in that building. I got it right here. 72, 43, and 20 at Stade Saputo.
Okay, so, that's 92 out of 130 some. I mean, that's
like 3/4. It's 3/4
of the matches you play at home, you get a result.
Yeah,
Atlanta United has only won there once, ever. And that was 2018, and that was not a routine easy win. They were up 2-0, and then Nacho Piatti scored with like 10 minutes to play, and you had to work pretty damn hard to see that thing out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know there's been a little bit of chatter that maybe they took a step back on Saturday. I think it's a little bit difficult to make that assessment because Miami and Montreal are not like for like competition.
No.
Now, I also know there is a subset of fans and supporters of this team who believe that nothing other than wins and championships is acceptable. And, for those who feel that way, yeah, I mean, sure, you're going to be disappointed when you lose 2-1 to Montreal and lose 1-0 or 2-1 at Miami. If that's the expectation you're going to have, and I'm not saying it is incorrect to have that expectation. Like Jason said, I can't tell you how to feel. If I were expecting the University of Georgia to win a national championship every year, I probably would have gone to an early grave.
Why you got to go there, Mike?
No, but it's true.
You could have said Tuscaloosa, Mike.
You could have said anybody else. Why'd you have to do that?
Penn State. Penn State State won a national championship twice in my first 5 years of life.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up expecting that Penn State would win a national championship every year. Penn State is going to send me to an early grave when I watch them play football because,
brother,
that's the expectation I grew up with. But it's not, frankly, it's not a realistic expectation. What I've grown to enjoy now is the seasons where, they go to the Fiesta Bowl and win it, or they go to the Cotton Bowl and win it, or they go to the Rose Bowl. Like it's okay to call those successful seasons. Some of the best seasons that I think Penn State has ever played have been years where they've gone 10-2. So anyhow, I don't know how I got on that tangent, but just long story short, I don't want to see them change their philosophy.
No.
And what I think we can all agree on is that we want to see this team equipped to play attacking soccer and be on the front foot and make teams react to what they're doing. Even though they haven't gotten the results, that's what they're doing. And I do really believe it's close. I really, really do. Maybe that's overly optimistic. I hope I'm not being overly optimistic. I do think they are close. And I also think we need to keep in mind that this team has not yet played a match in the month of May. The season doesn't end until October. There is a long, long way to get. Now, I know another, what's that SpongeBob meme with the capital and lowercase letters? You know what I'm talking about. SpongeBob, he's looking kind of quizzical, and he's going back and forth in reverse, and okay,
I'm searching for it.
Someone on the Twitch pitch,
somebody's got it, I'm sure,
has to know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I'm sure somebody does.
Where people are yelling about things that's it. Thank you, Storm Chaser Ken. Yeah, you know what I mean? The capital and lowercase letters with SpongeBob. Thank you, Jason Nick.
Lower, upper, and you're also whatever.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Here comes the SpongeBob meme. Well, you haven't played the toughest teams on your schedule yet. Well, that might be true. But you know what? At the beginning of April, we were looking at Chicago thinking that's going to be, if you get a point from Chicago, that's a good day. Well, Chicago has been a lot different over the last month, and they haven't scored in the last month. We looked when the schedule came out and thought, wow, home Columbus over Memorial Day. That's one that's going to be really, really tough to win. That game doesn't look as tough. It will be tough, but it doesn't look as tough as it looked when the schedule came out.
Well, they are coming off a 3-0 win now, so who knows?
Well, okay, all right, but New England, New England, when the schedule came out, oh boy, mid-May against New England.
Oh boy.
Yeah, well, all right, but a lot of people did. Like,
no, I'm still saying, oh boy. I'm saying, oh boy, right now. That's the thing. Like, that's the East. New England is not where you would expect they would be based off their talent in the table. I think Atlanta, you think they would be higher. So people are looking at Atlanta like that. You look at some of the teams that you didn't think would be as high based off talent and are higher or are pulling off some wins. 9 points top to bottom in the Eastern Conference. 9 points, 1-14. It's insane, and everything's tough. What you can control, in my opinion, and it doesn't matter. I don't care about the quality, the strength of the schedule. All that. I don't care about that stuff because you're not going to be able to measure that until the season's over anyway. Because this year's different than last year. What I care about is, are they playing well? And I would say yes to that. Playing well. I'm not talking about the result. I'm talking about how they are playing. They are playing well. They should be getting more results for the way they are playing. I feel like they are playing well. Are they playing well at home? They haven't lost at home. They've had a couple draws at home that you need to eliminate. You need to win those. You got to win your home games. Are they stealing things on the road? Not enough. From a results perspective, that's what I keep coming back to because you've got to think holistically here. You can't just go game by game and drive yourself crazy and knock yourself out banging your head against a brick wall. Are they playing well? Yes. They have to get wins at home. They haven't lost at home, but they have to get wins, and they have to get more points on the road. The road form for a while hasn't been good. That has to continue to improve. That good play has to be turned into good results. And that's the balancing act. If you don't have the good play, you're not going to have as many good results, period. Like, I'm sorry, if you can show me a mathematical formula and not one from the meme where people are freaked out by all the numbers and letters and everything going on the chalkboard. You can show me a mathematical formula where you don't try to play as well as you're playing, but somehow that leads to getting better results. If you can show me that, I'd love to see it because I will patent it and I will take it out and sell it to every team in the world. It's just, this is the game, and it will drive you insane. One thing you said at the beginning, Mike, before we let you go, because we got to save some good stuff for stoppage time today at 2:00. You said that the team is frustrated, and I agree with you, because they want to win these games. They want to get the result for the hard work they're putting in, and they are absolutely putting in hard work on the training ground, and they're putting hard work into these games. anybody who tries the old cliche of they're not trying hard enough, like, you got to stop with that nonsense.
I don't think anyone's doing that.
I've seen it. The frustrated part of it, I have no problem with that. What it can't lead to, and it has not yet in my mind, is it can't lead to then being tight or pressing. Like, and I don't mean pressing in terms of tactically. I mean like trying to do too much, those kinds of things. I don't see that yet. I think the game in Montreal, the team played within the construct of the way they wanted to play that game. They didn't get out of that at any point. They need to not do that. They have to, just like Liverpool yesterday. The message from Jurgen Klopp at halftime after giving up 2 goals in the first half was, be Liverpool. Play like Liverpool. That has to be the message right now. And I think for Gonzalo Pineda, it's not changing anything tactically, not changing things philosophically. It's having the conversations with the individuals, like giving them a lift, giving them confidence, giving them belief. That's the message this week.
Yeah, and I think it's 2 different things, right? Like, a lot was made of how Pineda kept everyone in the dressing room a long time after the match Saturday in Montreal. There is the balance, and I'll be really curious the next time we get a chance to talk to Gonzalo, and I don't know if we will be able to on Friday. It's a local TV game, right? So this Saturday, it's on Bally.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Okay. So we should be able to talk to Gonzalo on Friday. I'll just be really curious to see how he's balancing what you're talking about, Jason, try to reinforce the good things that they're doing while also at the same time coaching and being demanding that there are elements that are not acceptable right now. Your set piece defending is not acceptable right now. And unfortunately, you've been burned on some set pieces and you haven't been able to recover. So I'll be just really curious to see how he strikes that balance. If anyone can, I believe it's him.
Yeah.
Because I believe he has the trust of this playing group. And quite frankly, he's been through it before. You know, we talked to him in Montreal last week, and we were talking to him about the injuries. He says he's been through this before. You know, that he's been in other places that have had this horrible run of injuries. He's got experience dealing with it. I mean, you talk about a player who dealt with as much pressure and adversity as you possibly can deal with. Try playing for Mexico at the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a lot of pressure and a lot of adversity. So I think he's got the attention of the room. I think he will be able to strike that balance, but I just wonder how he's going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the magic trick. That's the hardest thing for coaches is these kinds of moments and managing it, not letting things get away from you when you're doing the things in general that you've wanted the team to do. The team is doing what you've wanted them to do. They're not getting the results to show for it, and you can't let that dent your belief in what you're doing and also in the group as a whole. So it's a lot to balance. It's a big game this weekend, bigger game than maybe we thought it would be. And they need to get 3 at home. We'll talk more about that on Friday. We'll talk more about that this afternoon on Stoppage Time, too.
Yeah, 2:00, 92.9 The Game Facebook page and Twitch. And it's good talking to you guys today. Enjoyed talking to Dylan, too.
Always fun. You guys can launch hockey down here.
HDH.
Yeah, that might be fun.
Yeah.
That might, although he's rooting for the Rangers, and they're playing the Penguins in the first round. And when those 2 teams meet, it's very hard for me to get emotionally invested as a Flyers fan when those 2 teams are playing. Like the 2 biggest rivals.
Well, see, then you can be the objective one about it.
Yeah, it would be like, who do you root for when Orlando plays Toronto?
Yeah,
mutually assured destruction.
Well,
it's like how I feel when Florida and Tennessee play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Or if you're, I don't know if Domer's in the Twitch pitch today. Like if Georgia's playing Alabama, who do you root for? Well, probably Georgia, actually. But
yeah, I think that one's okay.
Anybody but Alabama.
Example.
ABA.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, you take care.
Be good,
Cool.
Mike.
Thanks, Mike. All right, we'll get into stuff from the Twitch pitch, other things on the board before we do. Keep an eye on Brazil. We've talked about this multiple times, but it sounds like it's actually coming to fruition here. Top clubs now from the first and second divisions nationally. Remember, Brazil has their state leagues, and I think one aspect of this conversation is about limiting the influence of the state leagues, which is very complicated. The Brasileiro Serie A and Serie B, top 2 flights. All those clubs met to discuss forming an alliance to tackle basic terms of a proposed breakaway league. Now, this is not the Super League. This is not really even, although it's probably closest to what the Premier League did, but it's 2 divisions. Basically breaking away from the federation to do this. But I think the federation is kind of like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Just do we get money? Okay, yeah, fine, do what you want. There had been different groups talking about this, and there had been different groups of teams talking to different groups who were trying to do this. So it was very complicated. You had Corinthians, Palmeiras, Santos, Sao Paulo, Flamengo, as well as Red Bull, Bragantino, I believe. They had been on one side. You had the other groups in the first division on the other side. You had some second division teams that were on the other side. It's been all over the map. So it sounds like they're all coming together. There's 3 different groups they're talking about in terms of running the league or investing in the league or what that looks like. One is led by former Coca-Cola executive Ricardo Fort, who I know has spent a lot of time in Atlanta. I think he was based here when he was with Coke. That's backed by BTG Pactual. There's another group formed by commercial rights agency Live Mode. And then there's a third one that is led by an investment bank, XP, that has the backing of La Liga in Spain. So that gets really interesting. The meeting yesterday was talking about how they would share TV rights, because that stuff's a mess right now. Other financial details. They've set a new meeting for next week at the Brazilian Football Federation headquarters in Rio. That's why this isn't as wild of a breakaway as it might sound like it is, because the federation's like, yeah, whatever. Can we make more money? Cool, let's do it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Globo Esporte, the top newspaper in Brazil, said that meeting could be where the clubs announce the forming of a new league. So it could be announced next week as far as that. The 3 groups that are trying to vie to run this thing, they've all got lots of different experience. They've all got different people. Ricardo Fort's group has people with Codajas Sports Capital, CSK, business partners with that. Charlie Stilitano and Relevant Sports and a former ESPN executive are part of the Ricardo Fort group. So if you're looking for a potential U.S. connection with Charlie Stilitano, it would be the Ricardo Fort group that would be there. The Live Mode group, they handle commercial rights for 2 regional tournaments in Brazil, regional sponsorships for the World Cup in 2022. So they're very highly connected as well. And when you have La Liga and the other group, then they're pretty well connected as well. So who they pick is going to be interesting. But it sounds like they're really far along in making a stronger, I think, more substantial Brazilian national league. How it will affect the state leagues is a conversation. How the federation navigates that politically is a conversation, because there's a lot of history there. But for Brazil on the business side, to really regain where they've been, because, I mean, they still at the competitive level, Brazilian clubs are the best in South America right now. But from a financial standpoint, I mean, we've talked about this over the years. MLS is at the point where they are right there in the mix in terms of buying and selling with Brazil outside of those mind-blowing talents that appear out of Brazil and will draw that Brazilian surcharge going to Europe. There's still that, and that's not going away for decades, if ever. But in just a general day-to-day, in dealing with financials, I mean, you saw Brenner come here. That was a big deal. You're seeing guys move back and forth. So it's interesting that you're getting to that point. Brazil is trying to shore up the finances. Keep an eye on what that could turn into. There's also rumors, and I think they are very highly in the rumor stage, about Marcelo Bielsa and Chivas. I'm not buying it. I'm just not. I don't see it. It is a project that what would make me buy it is it's somewhat similar to Athletic Bilbao, Athletic Club, where, you know, they have the only Basque players rule, and they've had that forever. Chivas has the only Mexican national team eligible players rule. They've had that forever. Bielsa thrives in those kind of situations where he almost has limitations and he has to overcome them as a coach. and overcome them and how he builds a team. So maybe in that, but I don't see it because of the toxicity that you deal with in Mexico. And he didn't enjoy it when he was there last. He enjoyed it more at Atlas than he did at Club America. And this was a long time ago. Maybe he wants to go back and conquer it. I don't know. I'm not buying it. I feel like maybe a national team is what's next for him. Bournemouth clinched their promotion into the Premier League. Scotty Parker coming back into the Prem, with Bournemouth getting the other automatic spot after Fulham got the first one. So you've got competition for the other promotion playoff spots there. Rumor and innuendo, Chelsea, I don't know how they're going to do it until they have new ownership, but talking about extending Mason Mount. Manchester United's wish list just keeps growing depending on who you talk to. Darwin Nunez is on it. James Ward-Prowse is on it. Jared Brown from West Ham is on it. Sure, whatever. Manchester United right now is what Newcastle was in the January window, what Newcastle still is, because they are reportedly chasing Sassuolo and Italy striker Gianluca Scamacca, 23 years old. Milan and Inter are both chasing him as well. It sounds like Inter is going to get Paulo Dybala, who has also been linked to Newcastle at some point. You got like 5 clubs in the world that every player imaginable is linked to. Just whatever, rumor and innuendo side of things. James Ward-Prowse is linked to everybody. He's linked to Tottenham as well. Mark Cucurella of Brighton is also linked to Tottenham, according to Fichajes, who says that Antonio Conte wants to bring them in. And maybe more on the news than the rumor and innuendo, Barcelona reportedly have decided against doing the buy clause for Adama Traore. Wolves do not want to buy Trincao, and both players will go back to where they came. So Trincao back to Barca, Traore back to Wolves to start next season, and we'll see if they stick there.
Let's see. Also on the news front, Burnley. Right now, it appears that they would need to pay back, quote, a significant proportion of a £65 million loan at the end of the season if they're relegated from the Prem.
They would have to pay that back. This is in their financials. This is not a speculation thing. It's a £65 million loan that if they get relegated, they got to pay back. Now, how much is maybe the question, but they got to pay back a significant proportion of it. And that's in their latest financial accounts to July 31st of 21. So it's public. I think the amount they have to pay back is maybe the question. But yeah, they get relegated, money's due.
Mm-hmm. And the club does say in that relegation it's satisfied that it would retain the support of lenders. However, the information, obviously, it's going to spark concern among fans with where Burnley is right now on the table.
Well, it should, because I can say that, yes, the lenders will be happy with me. Yes, they will. I promise you they will be.
Yes. And
I could be Joe Isuzu.
Yes.
You know, I mean, if you want to roll the old reference, there you go. I throw the old reference at you today.
Nice one.
It's, whatever, Burnley. Like, now I think it's a little more clear why they, in some people's mind, panicked in firing Sean Dyche, but in how did it work? It's worked. So it was the right move.
Michael Jackson, 3 wins and a draw.
It was the right move. There is going to be a concern. I mean, if they have to pay back a significant portion of that loan and they get relegated, now they're going to have a parachute payment, but then that's going to affect their ability to keep the team together or bolster the team or whatever. And yeah, lenders are going to look at you different. Like, you can say whatever you want. So it is a concern. I don't think they're going down. I don't. I think it's between Leeds and Everton. And if I had to be a betting man here, it'd be hard to back Leeds at the moment with the schedule they have. It would be tough. It's going to be a wild race, but I think Burnley's actually going to be okay. They're the one I'm worried about the least.
Yeah. And you're looking at just next ones up for Burnley. It's a match against Aston Villa, and it's at Turf Moor, so that one I think is manageable. Leeds,
manageable for maybe a point.
Yeah, and Leeds goes to Arsenal this weekend, so
that's not good.
No, that's not good. And then remember, Everton has a match in hand, and they go to King Power this week, and they'll take on Leicester this weekend.
So I think Burnley picks up a point, and the others don't pick up anything.
So that
I'm not worried about Burnley.
Yeah. So 35, 34, 32 with 3 and 4 matches left to play after this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about Burnley. I mean, all of them have to be worried, but I'm not as worried about Burnley in comparison.
Yeah.
MLS updates before we get into some comments and questions from the Twitch pitch to finish. Portland is signing a 22-year-old Brazilian that they added to Timbers 2. He is now moving up. He had 13 goals and 4 assists for San Antonio. Last year in USL Championship, Nathan Fogacha is signing with the Portland Timbers. Chris Mueller, Orlando is going to get $500,000 in GAM for Mueller's rights. That's insane. I'm sorry. That's nuts. $250,000 this year, $250,000 next year. At least it's split over 2 years. Also a 2023 first round pick, which could be somewhat significant. Discovery rights to an unnamed player, the most MLS trade of all MLS trades. It's not a player to be named later. It's discovery rights to an unnamed player. Name the player.
Yeah, really?
Stop keeping secrets.
Come on, man.
Orlando keeps a small sell-on percentage, too. The GAM could go up another $150,000, depending on performance metrics. I think Chicago's overpaying for Chris Mueller here. I really think that they are. San Jose, this has been going on behind the scenes a little bit with Cade Cowell and his younger brother, Chance. I think Chance is in the U15 national team groupings. Cade Cowell is with San Jose. Both are in the process of obtaining Mexican citizenship. Doesn't mean that they will definitely represent El Tri, but it would open the door for them to be able to represent El Tri. Their maternal grandfather is what makes them eligible to do that. So it's been reported by quite a while. I know Jeff Carlisle had it in more of a broader piece here at ESPN. But Jóvenes Football MX has had it. It's been bubbling up for a minute. Colorado Rapids have traded Andre Shinyashiki to Charlotte, $225,000 in GAM for 2022. That feels a little high. Mm-hmm. Could be an additional $175 if certain performance and contract conditions are met. 50% of any potential trade fee. That's huge that Charlotte could get. Jairo Torres mentioned that he will be eligible for Chicago. The signing was announced before, but he was unveiled officially. Now that he is in the Windy City, he could be available for Saturday. He is the next in a line of Mexican internationals to represent Chicago. He's only got one cap for the senior national team, but he's looked at as one of their most promising young players. Cuauhtemoc Blanco, Pavel Pardo, Jorge Campos. Torres did say that he had spoken to Pardo and Campos before arriving in Chicago. So that's pretty cool. That's a smart move from a marketing standpoint. And this isn't purely a marketing signing. Actually, Pardo might have been the most of the marketing signings of that bunch because they tried to replace Blanco with Pardo. Very different personalities. Pardo, a great player, but Blanco is a transformational piece for the Chicago Fire. When Chicago was packing out Bridgeview and rocking and rolling, it was with Cuauhtemoc Blanco. It's just one of the most unique talents you can find. Cuauhtemoc and Pulga might be related somewhere along the line. They're very similar in their craziness and audaciousness, although I haven't seen Pulga do the Cuauhtemiña, the bunny hop that Blanco used to do. But Torres is smart where if you're Chicago, you can go get a exciting Mexican talent and engage the fan base that I don't think they've really truly had since Blanco left. I think they kept it a little bit with Pardo, but the team was slipping. If Torres goes in there and does well, he's coming off a Liga MX title with Atlas. If he goes in there and does well, you're going to see a good number of Mexican flags at Soldier Field. It'll be very exciting for the Chicago Fire and their fans.
Just out of Charlotte, and literally this just came down a couple minutes ago, quoting from the Panthers. After helping Tepper Sports and Entertainment with the successful launch of Charlotte FC as team president and leading several key initiatives with the organization, Nick Kelly has chosen to step down from his role as chief executive officer. Press release.
What?
Yeah.
Why does this keep happening?
Quote from David Tepper is your standard quote. Kelly will assist with facilitating an orderly transition for the organization. Kelly releases a statement. Kelly was named team president of Charlotte FC in December 2020, appointed to the newly created Tepper Sports and Entertainment CEO position in February. Now the organization will evaluate from the Panthers The organization will evaluate how best to move forward with filling the role. That happened 3 minutes ago.
Why does this keep happening?
Don't know.
He went from president of Charlotte FC to president, CEO, whatever, of all of it, and now leaving.
Yeah.
Technical director left before the season started. I'm baffled. And there were other ones before that. I think comms people / digital people left very early on before they started. I don't get it. I do not understand what is happening there. I don't know if it's just the most amazing coincidence of coincidences, but that's my feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, so that came down literally at 5 minutes ago from the Panthers themselves.
Okay. I mean, they'll hire somebody who should be great. I mean, they're going to have a pretty good pick. And I mean, it's not. Did they get another president of Charlotte FC? I don't even know if they've gotten that yet.
I haven't heard of that.
I mean, so they got to do that, and they got to get the CEO of Tepper Sports and Entertainment. All right. I'm going to miss the 1 a.m. tweets. I know that much. But we'll see what's up. Wild, crazy. I'm confused. But anyway.
And news from Bloomberg in the UK, the Jim Ratcliffe late Chelsea FC offer has been rejected out of hand.
Yeah, because it was late.
Missed the deadline. Just because you're owner of Ineos and you're going to throw up a £4.25 billion bid and you don't pay attention to the bid process and you just sit there and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and bid. I'm going to deal.
Well, hold on. They're saying they're throwing up a £4.5 million billion blah bid. They're saying that. They're not part of the process. So there's no justification that's actually real. That's the BS of it. That's why you didn't do it on time. Because I right now, I am putting forth a €5 billion bid. Beat that. I just did it. No, don't ask me to prove it or show how that money would actually come together, but I just did it. No, get out. Stop. You have a bid process for a reason, and it was uber competitive, and people had to prove where the money was coming from. You can't just walk in the door and say you're doing something.
After the deadline.
You can't do it anytime. The deadline's there because it's a process.
Yeah. It's like,
you can't skip the process.
I'm skipping the process. I'm going to go ahead and.
Oh, shut up. Shut up. It's stupid. Go home. It's you have the process, and if it doesn't work with Bowley, you got two others who actually did the process, and they're next in line. Go home. What else we got?
Storm Chaser Kevin wanted to know when the window closes, the transfer window.
I don't know what time. It depends on where it is. I haven't seen anything official. I mean, is it 6:00 Eastern? Is it 9:00 Eastern? If it's 6:00 Pacific, is it midnight Eastern? Is it midnight Pacific? I have no idea. It hasn't been really well publicized. It is at some point today. I know that much. It is at some point today, and I don't know exactly where it fits. And I thought maybe there would be some more information in somewhat of an official capacity somewhere, but I do not see it front of mind. So I got nothing. Sometime today.
Emilio.
But also remember, because this happens with any of these windows, whenever the deadline is, the deal could still get announced after the deadline if the paperwork's submitted. They just don't announce it till whenever. And we've seen that more in this league because you don't have people standing outside of training grounds and sticking microphones into people's car windows and that kind of stuff. So it could get submitted and announced tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I remember right, the Ataruju announcement was like that, where it got done very, very late in the process for the window, I think on both sides of it, and it was announced publicly the next day.
A couple of Atlanta United thoughts leading into stoppage time.
Yep.
You and Mike at 2.
Yep.
Emilio, on our conversation about Seattle having 6 players who are either currently DP or formerly DP at one point of their career, he goes, "What a difference. We have 1 or 2 DPs playing for the last 3 years, and I heard Seattle always has a steady 6. Ours haven't been on the field to be steady since 2019. Never knew those stats. At least Pineda has a role model to follow."
Yeah, I mean that's one reason why you bring him in, but he's not directing all of that either. I don't think Atlanta has tried not to do that. I think it's hard to do. Like I think maybe at times when people get frustrated, like you think, oh well, what I'm saying they should do is very easy. But a lot of things have to line up, and teams that can have the right game plan and right process and all of it can have things go wrong. And I think with Atlanta's case, like 2020, having Joseph Martinez have his ACL tear is something you don't necessarily plan for, and it's hard to deal with in a cap kind of league, and it's hard to deal with when it happens on opening day and you can't replace him like for like. Kansas City's going through that this year twice now with 2 designated players that they've lost to injury. And you can have all the plans in the world, but when you lose a designated player in this league, you can't replace them like for like. Even when you replace, in Atlanta's case now, with whichever one that ends up being replaced and getting whatever cap support that they get and all of that, you don't get to replace it like for like. You can't pay whoever's going to replace Osvaldo Alonso on the roster like for like. It's not allowed. So it's tough. When things happen like that, when season-ending injuries happen like that, it derails everything. When minor injuries happen, it can derail things temporarily, and it can be difficult for a while. And Seattle's dealt with that, even as well as they're constructed. And even with all that, they're not guaranteed to win anything. They're not guaranteed to go to Columbus in 2020 and win the title. They didn't play well at all in that game. That's the beauty of, and for some, the ugliness of MLS, in that it is a playoff-based league. The flow of the way you build is different. Now, Seattle this year did it differently because they have the CCL in front of them, and they went and they paid for Rusnak when I don't know if they would have done that in another year. I think they would have kept their money, kept that spot for the summer, and then went and did something. But they did it in the winter this time because of CCL. You need to be at your best at the end. Now, CCL and in Leagues Cup, it changes the flow for some teams, and it shows how hard it is to balance it. But in MLS, a good start is good for your table position. But if you're not playing well when you walk into the postseason, you're done. Bye. Over. You might be out game 1. See ya. Dallas in 2016, where they had an injury in Mauro Diaz. They almost did the treble that Toronto did the next year with the Canadian Championship. Dallas did the Open Cup. They did the Supporters Shield. Mauro Diaz, Achilles. Yes, and insert the joke about Atlanta's training staff here because it's an Achilles. So obviously it's the training staff, right?
Yes.
Mauro Diaz blows the Achilles, and they're not the same team going into the postseason. They get bounced, I think, by Seattle. Like, it's a different animal. And that's where, and going back to something that Kevin and Charlotte said on the Full-Time Report, and I said it on Twitter, I think it was Monday. I thought he was saying that I was referring to it on SDH on Monday when I wasn't talking about it on Monday. We did talk about it in Montreal on Saturday on the Full-Time Report. I think it is very difficult in MLS to demand winning a trophy every year. And I think where I'm typically at with this conversation is you need to be in contention for trophies every year. If you're Atlanta, if you're Seattle, if you're NYC, if you're a big club, the expectation is that you're in contention. And right now, Atlanta's not in a place to be in contention in the table. It's also May. You got to get to the end. You got to get into the postseason. Are they a team that you get to the postseason and can win? Because for me personally, I will trade off being first in the table in May for being a team that goes into the playoffs that I think can win the thing. I'll trade that in a heartbeat. Absolute heartbeat. Now, you got to be in a position. You don't want to have to go on the road in 3 games. Those kinds of things are very real topics. But I can't decide on anything yet. It's way too early. And with those things that you can't control, it's been difficult. I am pleased with the way the team is playing, but the results got to match that. And that's what you have to get. So long-winded answer to that. But yeah, it's Seattle is structured very well, but even in a situation where they're structured very well, they don't win every time. They have things that go wrong. They have built very, very well. And this year, they built really for the first time for CCL. Because in previous years, I mean, what was it? Was it last year they got knocked out by Olympia in the round of 16?
Yeah.
They did not take CCL seriously last year, and they got criticized for it, and they should have. Now, they took it very seriously, and they're on the precipice of history. So we will see where they go tonight with it. But even your great clubs, you have all the resources and do the right things and have the right plan and all that. That's the beauty of sports, man. Unpredictability. Things can go wrong. Player can lose form. Player can get hurt. Somebody can leave. An offer comes in. A coach can leave. Chemistry doesn't go. I mean, there's so many things that you cannot predict on paper. And that's what's so wild about it. And you got to then be able to adapt.
I'm going to combine a couple of points here involving Gonzalo Pineda from Pilgrim and Burned.
Okay.
Pilgrim says Pineda's one small tweak away from busting this whole thing wide open. That's Pilgrim's gut feeling.
I don't think it's a tweak. I think it is honestly goals hitting the back of the net. I don't think you tweak that. You can't make a tactic to score a goal. But I don't think it's a tweak. I honestly don't think there's a tweak. I think it's producing with what he's done. And tactically, he's had different approaches in different games. So it's not like he's just rolling the same thing out there and saying, go do whatever we've worked on, just go do it. There's little things every game that are different. And I know nobody's really talking about that except for here. And we've talked about it, whether it's Andrew Gutman tucking in to build up the play like that with Caleb Wiley up high, whether it's the midfield that turned into a box in Montreal at times with Araujo and Moreno tucking in a little bit with the double pivot of Ibarra and Josetu. That was different. Some of the changes have had to be based off injury, but he's not just rolling the same thing out every game. I think there are people out there who are trying to lead you to believe that. And you got to look deeper. It's not the same game plan every time. That's a tactic. The philosophy is the same. They want the ball. They want the ball back quickly. And I thought their pressing was outstanding in Montreal. You had Araujo back from the start. That was where he impacted the game the most. But the philosophy is the same. The tactics are not the same game to game. You're not trying to attack teams the same way game after game after game. For all they're too programmed to play it wide. They didn't have many crosses in Montreal. They didn't just force the ball wide. And you can show whatever screenshot you want. That's not accurate. Go look at the numbers. They didn't just pump in crosses. The 2 games before, they put in more crosses. Montreal, that wasn't their game plan. It's not how it played out. So, I mean, I'm just telling you what we've talked about already and what we always do, where we try to go a little bit deeper into it. Pilgrim, I don't think it's a tweak. I honestly think it's a production thing. I think it is getting a goal. I think it is getting goals. And you can't tweak something to get that. You just have to do it. You just have to score.
And then Burns says he thinks that Pineda had made a small successful move adding Ozzy. Then unfortunately he got hurt. So Pineda's ability to identify the roster weakness and adding the correct puzzle piece gives him hope for future seasons and maybe even the fall if they can do something in the summer window.
Pineda with the front office added Ozzy. Pineda didn't do it by himself. Pineda suggested Ozzy. Everybody's on the same page. They went and got Ozzy. We can't do the game where a move that people like is the coach and a move that people don't like is the front office. That's not how anything is structured. There's no move that the coach goes to get that the front office doesn't have a say in. There's no move that the front office goes to get somebody and just dumps it on the coach. Are there moves that one side might believe more strongly than the other? Yeah, because that's humanity, right? We all have different levels of opinion on something. But Pineda didn't go get Ozzy. Pineda probably brought up Ozzy, and yeah, that wasn't very hard. You didn't have to really sell that very hard, when the conversation towards the end of last season was we want to get more experience. Osvaldo Alonso's available. There you go. Check all the boxes. What is different about Pineda in that conversation is, one, I think he's been involved in more of those conversations in his career than Gabriel Heinze was, because Heinze, he can recommend people, and he did, and he recommended people that were good. I like a lot of the additions that came during that time that he said he had a list of people that he recommended, and that's the way he put it. And I like a lot of those additions. Cool. Frank de Boer didn't have that experience in dealing with this kind of a situation. Tata Martino didn't, but they all found ways to work with a front office to go get the moves that they wanted, or get moves that had to get done. And sometimes that's the other way it goes. When you had an injury last year with Sosa in the middle of the season and you needed to get some midfield help, you're looking in the league and it's all right. We could go get X, Y, or Z. This is who's available. Who do you want? You can get into those kind of conversations of this is what we have to do. We need a player in this position. These are the choices. Rank them. We'll try to follow your ranking. And even then, you never know what the deal's going to be. Sometimes the number one guy on the list might be the highest price and it might not work. It's all collaborative. So let's keep that in mind first. But yes, I think the biggest thing about Pineda is he is a holistic thinker. And that's what I like about him the most. He is not wrapped up purely in game to game, moment to moment. The best managers in the world are the ones who think about walking into a season. This is what I want to accomplish in what we do. Not in this is what I want to accomplish in terms of how many wins I have and what trophies I lift, because you can't guarantee anything. What you can guarantee is the work that you put in and what you try to do. He's got that. He thinks about that every day. I'm sure in October of last year, he was thinking about what he wanted to do in 2022. Not at the expense of tactics for the next game, but in terms of big picture. So if season ends, I kind of know where I want to go. Now I can spend more time on it and flesh it out. I have those bullet points. I know what I want to hit. He's holistic. He just like Matt Lowry said on the show, he's looking at the academy. He's looking long-term. He brings Noah Cobb in to train with the first team for a couple weeks. You need to bring somebody in for a game, just to have extra cover. He goes to Montreal with the team. Great. He's thinking about who's coming. He's thinking about then, okay, who's coming? Who do I have? Who's going to get better? Who do I like? What do I need? And then I think the biggest difference from Heinze, from de Boer, from Martino, is Pineda has relationships in a very different part of the world than any of them did in Mexico. And Pineda has relationships with clubs in Mexico. And he has relationships and probably knowledge of who is available in Mexico that others wouldn't. And there are players in Mexico who can adapt really well. And that could be very beneficial to the club in the long run. And we'll see if it is in the short and the long run. But that's what comes to mind differently. It's not Gonzalo Pineda going and getting a deal and then walking it into the front office. It's all collaborative. And we can't pick and choose the ones we like as giving it to the coach, and the ones we don't like blaming it on the front office. That's not how it goes. And all that is furthering a narrative. And that's not what Byrne was doing, but I'm stressing that point because that happens all the time.
Two other points that are Wall Pass Wednesday-ish.
Yep.
And former intern, former host Niles, you mentioned Heinze. Teise is mentioning Universidad de Chile is now looking at Heinze as well, according to
Heinze has been linked to everything. I think he was last spotted in Spain at a very nice restaurant. I can't remember who he was with. It wasn't Aymar. It was somebody else, another former Argentine player. He's been linked everywhere, but there hasn't been anything progressing to like conversations. So if Boca loses in Bolivia, he'll be linked to Boca. He already has been linked to Boca. He'll be linked to any other team that fires their manager if they get bounced out of Libertadores or Sudamericana. He'll be linked to other places in South America. He'll be linked. It's just none of them have really got past the broad rumor standpoint. So take that stuff with a grain of salt. Like the longer he sits out not managing, the more damaging it is for what his long-term career could be. Because I do think he has the potential to be a very good manager. But the longer he doesn't, and look, you got to go back and remember when he retired, that wasn't where he wanted to go. Now he jumped into it with both feet, and he talked about somebody who thought about what he wanted to do. He absolutely did. Stuff didn't just happen, but he didn't want to go into coaching management when he retired. He got not talked into it. I mean, it was kind of like, hey, you have an obligation here. You have to get back to the game. And that was what Menotti told him in Argentina. And he went through all the licenses and all the things. So I don't know really where he wants to be and what he wants to do, because this was the first time he had real failure as a manager. So maybe he just needs more time. I don't know, but I'm not taking any of the rumors seriously at all until it gets past the linked here, linked there, or whatever. I don't see that one as a realistic one for him. I think it'll be somewhere bigger than that.
Tafka with a Leagues Cup question.
Yeah.
First, second, and third place of the Leagues Cup makes CCL. Do we know how the selection process proceeds if a Leagues Cup champion is also qualified via MLS Cup champion, et cetera? Not a major issue. Just curious.
I don't know exactly, but my hunch is whatever is the automatic spot into the round of 16 as opposed to the opening round. If whichever one you qualify for, you're going to get further along in the tournament. Like if you win MLS and you get through with Leagues Cup as well, it's the MLS winner, you're into the round of 16. So that's how you're going to get in, and things bump down. So I don't know how things bump, like how things get reorganized when you have somebody who would get in through two different spots, but whichever one gets them further along into it, because some come into the opening round, some come into round of 16. You'll take the one that gets you to round of 16, and things will change. And I don't know where that adjustment happens. So that part I don't know. And I don't know if they've really got that far along with it.
Storm Chaser Kevin with a NISA question.
Okay.
He says, how does NISA work financially? The teams seem very spread out, especially in the East, and it can't be cheap to fly teams all over the place for matches. Could sponsorship cover all those costs?
Sure, it could, but it doesn't. NISA's too hypothetical for the way it was structured for me. And we talked about it on the show years ago when Peter Wilt brought up I think a comment that he said was, oh, travel costs aren't that big of a deal in running a league. I was apoplectic in disagreeing with that, because I wasn't involved at that level in 97 and 98 with the Atlanta Ruckus, but I know what the biggest costs were for a team at that level at that time, which was second division. And it was traveling to the West Coast. It was traveling. That's why USL at that time would put you on a trip that you did Friday and Sunday or Thursday and Saturday, and you'd play 2 games in 3 days, which is asinine. But why would you do that? Because you didn't want to send them out there twice, because it was expensive. You would punt on a game essentially because you had to, because it's just cost. So when that was said in the structuring of the league, it was just like, are you serious? Yes, it is a big deal. And when you just add people willy-nilly and don't think about that, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And as we've talked about this with NISA should be the first 4th division professional league. They should truly corner the market on the bridge between amateur and pro. And they should go regional, and they should go smaller, and they should not be flying across the country at this level. It's insane. Because if you are Syracuse, which has already had financial issues, if you're Syracuse and you're trying to, okay, where's your revenue coming in from? Sponsorship. Sponsorship doesn't fix everything. And too many lower division teams, not summer league, not that scale where you're talking bus trips or van trips or those kinds of things. Sponsorship's massive there. Because if I'm running an NPSL team and I get a bus sponsorship and I get my bus travel paid for, it's an in-kind, I just might have saved the season. I just might have given us a position to do something completely different, because that's your biggest expense outside of renting space. But if you are at the level of a nationwide pro league, you're not getting a sponsorship to cover that. Not happening. Delta, or American Airlines or whoever, they're not giving you free tickets. They're laughing in your face. Spirit isn't giving you free tickets. Frontier's not giving you free tickets.
Breeze.
You're not getting chartered. You can say whatever you want. All of them, fine. None of them are giving you free tickets. You're not getting charter free flights. You're not getting any of that. None of that's happening. So you got to pay that. And if you are Syracuse and you are figuring out, all right, where does my revenue going to come in from? Because these are my expenses. The league has set up a schedule. This is the format that we bought into, and they did it. They paid the money to join the league, and I mean, they thought they could make it work. But you know what your expenses are. They're fixed. You have whatever you set your budget for the roster. You have your travel, and you have your venue. Like the big ones, and there's others, of course, but those are your big ones. That stuff's fixed. Nothing you can do. It is what it is. What's your revenue? Are you going to make more money by playing home and away with a team in Arizona? No. You don't make more money by playing Arizona than playing a team in Buffalo. Just because it says Arizona on it, it doesn't mean they're going to make more money doing that. And you're not first division. It's dumb. This isn't England. England! Where you can take a bus ride, and if they'll take a bus ride, then they're the glamour boys. You can take a train. It's not Germany. It's not any of these others. Brazil, even, like, that's why their state leagues are important, because it is close. Like, flying to Arizona from Syracuse to play a game is the dumbest thing imaginable for a third division team that is going to lose money on a good day. It's stupid. Structure the league smaller and grow it, because you're not going to find a sponsor to cover it. What NISA is doing financially is wasting a lot of people's money. And other leagues have done it too. This is not purely a NISA thing. USL did it for a long time. NASL did it. Every professional league in the United States has done it. If you're a first division league, you have to do it. It's a perception thing. You can't be regional. You got to be national. That's the price you pay to be at that level. That's how you're going to get on ESPN. That's, and that's the flip side, is if you're national, you're in all these markets. Yeah, ESPN wants to talk to you. You're NISA, they don't want to talk to you. ESPN's not paying you money. It's not happening. You're not talking TV deals. And people can scoff and do whatever they want about MLS's TV deal, whatever it ends up being. NISA's not getting that. NISA's paying to get on anything resembling TV, because that's the scale we're talking about. So you got to go into it understanding who you are and what NISA should have done. And they've done a pretty good idea with the NISA Nation portion of it, where it is, okay, they're looking at the amateur side and they're looking at who can step up. They needed to start with that, not start with a Philadelphia team that I think played one game and then didn't take a trip and blamed it on a storm coming the next week, and then we never heard from them again. You started with an Atlanta team that was a absolute clown show in terms of having a website and having social media and paying bills and all the different things that they needed to do. That's how you started. You should have started regionally with amateur teams that had the ambition to be more, and then regionally grow, because that's how you're sustainable. Otherwise, you're just a vanity project and you're just throwing money away, and it's a waste, and it damages soccer in the country, because what happens is people will look at, Syracuse is a failure as a soccer market. No, the people who ran the team in Syracuse failed. Syracuse can be a great soccer market, just like many other markets that have had teams that have failed. People said Atlanta couldn't be a soccer market because Atlanta soccer teams had failed. Well, joke's on you. It's frustrating, because these things they're not new. Like I said, I knew these things in 1997, 1998, when you look at costs, when you look at budgets, when you look at fixed things. We started in PSL in the South, and we started with a motto. That was more than a motto. It was a commandment The commandment at that time was we would build the league to be a drivable league, because these were all teams that were not going to come in and spend crazy amounts of money. They wanted to be around for a long time. And there were a lot of teams at the very beginning who weren't around for a next season because you're figuring that out. You're also talking about a much lower barrier of entry. That's great. But when you're doing that, you got to be respectful of who's coming in, and you don't ask them to go travel across the country immediately. When we got a few years into it and the opportunity came in for Jacksonville to join, and the conversation between the leadership, and I was in these conversations at that time, and you had Chattanooga by this stage, and you had Georgia Revolution by this stage, and you had Atlanta FC. I think we were still Atlanta FC, not Silverbacks Reserves at that point. I think we had Birmingham in. They hung around a while, but they didn't have enough to last for a long time. It wasn't the Hammers. It was a group before that. When Jacksonville came to the door, they didn't have a region in Florida to join because everything was in the south part of the state as it was starting to build up. I don't even know if that had actually happened yet. They didn't have anywhere else to go. Myrtle Beach was another one that came into this, and it was, we understand you want to come in as a national entity. It would be strategic to have you come in because we might be able to build to a region for you, build to a division for you. But to come in, we're not going to ask the people who have built this to stretch beyond their means. If you want to come in this year, you're going to have to pay for more of the travel difference in cost, those kinds of things. And that was the deal. And Jacksonville said yes, and Myrtle Beach said yes when they came in. And that was the deal for them to enter. And ultimately, it built a broader region and more divisions, and it was still sustainable. And that's why it went from 2008 with 3 teams to what the South region is now, where you have teams in the South not even playing in the South region because it's grown so much. Because you have to have that plan, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it is long term. But when you come in like NISA did and you say travel costs aren't a big deal, you have teams that come and go really fast, and you have situations like you're having this year, and there's nothing that changes it. When you set up that travel cost barrier, you're not getting a sponsor that is going to fix that. You're not getting more revenue at the gate to fix that. You're not getting transfer fees to fix that. It is an anchor that is weighing you down, and there is no solution to it. And if they continue with that, the league's not going to last. They're going to have to evolve into something different. I hope that they do, because there's plenty of markets that will benefit from having, if it's 3rd division in name and it's really 4th division in terms of their approach, there are plenty of markets that will benefit from that. There are plenty of clubs that can benefit from that. But you got to be realistic about who you are. You're not a nationwide league, and you shouldn't be at that stage for those kinds of budgets. You just can't be. You're creating death of franchises, of clubs. You're creating death, and you got to fix that.
Bernd was asking, if NISA ceases to exist as a league, the teams that survive, where do you think they would go?
It'll be a mix of stuff. And a lot of it's going to depend on who of them have burned bridges. And some have. There are some who have been very vocal about things and have said a lot of things that's going to prevent them from going places. But they'll be looking at MLS Next Pro, and they'll be looking at USL. Those are really the 2 options, unless they go down a level and go to NPSL or go to UPSL or stuff like that, which is also possible. And there could be some that probably need to do that. But it's really down to USL or MLS Next Pro for the ones that are going to continue at a pro level, and they're going to have to hit higher standards, and they're going to have to be, for some of them, more professional than they've been. And not all of them can hit that, but we'll see. Some are going to struggle because of maybe the approach that they've had or things that they've said, and they might not get the invite that they think they'll get. We'll just have to wait and see.
Storm Chaser Kevin, he says that what you were describing reminds him of Appalachian FC. He doesn't see them staying in the region because of the travel and all the points in between.
And I don't know the relationships. I can't tell you if it's a similar setup as it was then. But strategically, when that comes to the door of, hey, this is what we want to do, this is who's backing it, it's Michael Hitchcock, who's had success in this league launching clubs. You listen. and you say, okay, you know what? This takes us out of our comfort zone a little bit, but if it doesn't hurt us, if it doesn't break our budget, if it doesn't, threaten our survival, you do it for the good of the league. And we were really lucky when we got started with NPSL at that time that there were people who were obviously looking to grow their clubs. I mean, Chattanooga FC is one of the greatest success stories in American soccer, and they started in the NPSL in 2009. I was there for their first game. Atlanta FC went up there and I think won 3-1, and they had a good crowd for game one, and that was an eye-opener for everybody in NPSL, especially in the South, of, whoa, this is what it can be. Okay, cool. It pushed everybody's game higher. It was great. But they were also not purely at that time, and I don't know where it changed again. I was out of leadership of NPSL in the South by like 13 when we went on hiatus. I think that's when I stepped away. I helped a little bit with the reserves in 14 and 15 with the Silverbacks, but not at the NPSL level. Still had connections, but wasn't involved in that. I was involved in the region leadership up to through the 2012 season. All my dealings with Chattanooga FC up to that point were great. And they definitely wanted to grow what they were doing, but they also thought, we don't want to do this at the expense of everybody else. And that was great to see. And Andy Zorvich over in Huntsville with Rocket City United at the time, same thing. He went on to very important roles in NPSL, leading the league as a whole. Georgia Revolution, at that time, it was Rockdale Youth Soccer who was overseeing it. Rafe Moran was just a great partner to have in terms of all of us being able to say, this is what we want to do locally, but this is what we want to do all together. And we've got to work together to grow this, and we're in for the long haul. We're in for the long game here. This is not just a year-by-year thing. The clubs that were year-by-year, many of them didn't exist. So when you have a proposal like Appalachian FC come to the table, you take that for the good of the league. You take that for the good of the group, as long as it's not going to make your survival be threatened. And that was the conversation we had with Jacksonville and with Myrtle Beach when they came in and made it work. And Myrtle Beach eventually went away. Their funding changed, but Jacksonville from NPSL kind of merged all the way around, ended up becoming some either affiliated or part of Jacksonville Armada when they were pro. And I mean, it served its purpose, and they still have a presence in Jacksonville. So it served its purpose really well. And I'm happy that some of those decisions we made ended up benefiting the game in the long term.
A couple of other things before we go.
Yep.
Nick's was asking for a twos preview tonight.
It's a tough one with Louisville City. We don't know what the twos are going to have in the midweek in terms of the roster. Excited to see the Brazilian left back, Raymar. We've seen Nelson Orji play a good bit here lately at center back. Curious to see him continue. I'd expect that Noah Cobb is back with the twos for this one. So always good to get Noah back. Louisville's a tough team, and Louisville's a team that we kind of know how they're going to approach this. I'm not expecting any surprises. They've added some really nice pieces this year. Musha Galusa, I think one of the better players in the USL Championship. He goes to Louisville from Sporting Kansas City too. Great get for them, and he's always killed us. So not looking forward to seeing him, but it's a good test for the twos. And when you do start talking about injuries for the first team and all those different things, these games can be big opportunities for guys to show that, hey, if you need me, I can step up and I can come and help, and I can be moved up on the roster if it gets to that point. So, guys like Darwin Mateus, guys like Robbie Mertz, guys like Aiden McFadden, every one of these games, it has that little extra to it of, hey, you guys are close, but are you ready? Jackson Conway, a very good chance we see him tonight. Can you score consistently in USL Championship to demand playing time in MLS? So far, he hasn't demanded it. He's gotten some, and I think he's actually done well with it. I've been happy with Jackson's performances off the bench in MLS, but he hasn't demanded the time with his performances in USL or in MLS. It's been okay. It's been pretty good. MLS has actually been really good. I've been happy with it, but he's got to demand it tonight. He's got to go in and be an absolute handful for Louisville and get goals and get chances and be a complete player. Those are the things you're looking for out of these guys. So, as always, for Jack Collison, it's that balance between the collective and whistle to whistle, trying to find a way to get 3 points, with the individual performances with guys who are always in an audition mindset of trying to impress Gonzalo Pineda, who probably will be there watching because he typically is.
Couple of Wall Pass Wednesday things to wrap up.
Yeah, quickly.
News and notes. Campeones Cup is officially announced. Yankee Stadium, September 14th. NYCFC against the champion of Liga MX.
Cool. The Campeón de Campeones.
Yes, the Campeón de Campeones. Yes.
Because they have 2 champions.
Right. Clausura, Apertura, they play Campeón de Campeones. That winner goes to Yankee Stadium, September 14th, to take on NYCFC. Did you bid on the Hand of God jersey?
No, because I don't have that kind of money, although I did bid for Chelsea earlier this morning.
A little over £7 million, 7.14 million pounds in the Sotheby's auction for the Hand of God jersey.
That's insane.
Let's see. El Mataflow, who wins in a free kick competition? Diego De La Torre, Kevin Kratz, or Mikey Ambrose, all at their current age and skill set.
Ooh, De La Torre is the sneaky one. I'm going Mikey. I'm going Mikey because of the lefty. I'm going Mikey. I think Mikey's highly underrated in those moments.
And this is the last thing, and this is from me. How did things go with the GHSA last night?
Boys game, the Dalton Academy got the win 3-1 over, or 4-1 over Drew Charter, or 4-2. Sorry, it got crazy at the end. We got 4-0, and then Drew Charter got a couple of goals pretty late, and it did get a little spicy at the end. But the Dalton Academy, great story. We're going to try to catch up with Ruri Alvarez, their coach, who started the program first year as a school. A lot of kids who didn't fit in traditional schools in the Dalton area, kids who didn't make teams at other schools, all came together. You got some guys who'd never played competitive high school before, but really good play, good players. Adrian Granados, one of their top players, wanting to play in college. He's a senior. I hope he gets the opportunity because, man, he's talented. Center back Hussein is Egyptian born, and he's playing at Dalton State in the fall, which is very cool. But first year for both of them to get to the championship. Drew Charter's not an old program. It's only 10 years around. This was their first state championship game. And they got a bunch of freshmen. They'll be back. But the Dalton Academy is a really cool program. So we'll be talking to them next week, hopefully. The girls' game was as wild as I thought it would be with Commerce and Social Circle. For a public, this is the smallest public schools in the state. For example, the Dalton Academy, 250 students, and reportedly 90 of them were there in Macon, which was awesome.
That's awesome.
It was loud. There were a bunch of people from Social Circle and Commerce as well, which was very cool for the A Public girls game. Really good level. And I mean, at the lower the classification, generally it's 1 or 2 players who turn it. That wasn't the case in this. I mean, both teams, of course, the talented players showed really, really well in this game, but you had depth of squad, and I was blown away at how good it was. 6-4 overtime. 2 teams that scored 177 goals coming into it. They were both 22-1. Their loss was to each other. They both scored the same number of goals in the season in 23 games. They almost conceded the same number. One conceded 13, one conceded 15. Ivy Tolbert of Commerce, a sophomore, 102 goals coming into it. She got 2. Commerce got on the board first with a header really early. It went to 1-1. It went to 3-1 Commerce. Then it went to 3-3 as Social Circle climbed back into it. Then it went to 4-3 Commerce. Then it went to 4-4. Then in overtime, there was a penalty, a second yellow, and a red to Commerce, and it ended up 6-4 Social Circle. And as Ivy Tolbert was a great player, everything you would expect, maybe the nation's leading scorer in the spring. on the girls' side. But on the other side, Brooks for Social Circle, I think she ended up the year with the goal she scored in the championship with 70 plus. Really two good teams. And it was a back and forth game. Like, it was a little direct at times, of course. I mean, you expect that to a degree, as again, with the lower classifications. But it wasn't just boom ball. I mean, there was thought in the way they were playing. There were tactics from both teams. It was really good. And that, like, those are the games that blow me away doing Georgia high school. And we talk about the growth of the game. A Public, two really good games, and both teams had ways to win in both games. Both teams had things that they did really well. Both teams had players who can play at the next level. The growth of the game in the state is just amazing. From 2017, when I first did state championship games, 2018 is where I first did like a wide run of them, to now, in terms of level and competitiveness, whole nother planet with these games. It was a blast. That girls' game was so much fun to call, and I hope a bunch of them. I mean, the key protagonists for both teams were sophomores. Commerce got a player who I just loved, Chloe Diaz up top. She'd been hurt for most of the year with a knee injury. This was her first start, first significant minute. She played the whole way. Such a soccer IQ on her. I mean, she's playing as a 9, but she's playing it like a false 9 a lot of times, dropping in deep. This is single A Public, and you got a number 9 who's dropping into combine. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Really good stuff. She'll be a senior next year. Tolbert will be a junior. Brooks for Social Circle will be a junior. Just great stories all around in that game. It was a great match, and the future is super bright for the high school game in the state. So games tonight, you can watch on NFHS. You got games at 5:00 and at 7:30, barring overtime. In the first game, like we had last night, it was a late night getting out of there, and then I made really good time because there's nobody on the road.
Yes,
getting back home, but I got home at like 11:45, 11:50. So I'm on fumes right now. But games tonight, I'm trying to remember which one is in which place. You got 2A and you've got 3A finals. In Macon, you've got the 2A, and that'll be Luke Winstall and Jessica Charman on the call. On the boys' side, you've got Pace and Lovett tonight in Macon. And over at McEachern, and you will have Chris Mooneyham, and you'll have our own Nick Alifi on the call. You've got Greater Atlanta Christian and Oconee County on the boys' side. Oconee County won a state championship recently, and I think it was at 4A, if I'm not mistaken. The classifications have all changed, and it's a little hard to follow at times.
They're going to change again soon.
Sure, because yay. But yeah, I think they want it at a little bit higher classification. So that'll get really interesting. In Macon tonight, 2A girls, Pace Academy and Lovett. Lovett has won so many state championships on the boys and girls side. So that's two of the blue bloods in that one. And then over at McEachern on the girls side, Westminster, another one who's won a ton of state championships over the years. They won the first on the boys side back in 66. Greater Atlanta Christian doing the double tonight over at McEachern. So Nick and Mooneyham at McEachern on NFHS, Jess and Luke on NFHS from Macon tonight, 5 and 7:30. You can pull those up while you're watching ESPN Plus on the twos. You can have 3 screens going. All of that is a prelude to ConcaChampions tonight. And all of it is the in-between after Manchester City and Real Madrid this afternoon. The day of football is complete for you. We'll have stoppage time to get you ready for all of it starting at 2:00. Twitch.tv/stoppage time929, as well as Facebook.com/929thegame. That's it too with me and Mike. Champions League at 3, NFHS at 5 and 7:30, and then we're at 7:30 with Atlanta United 2 and Lou City. And then we're back tomorrow to talk about all of it. and then I'll drive to Macon again tomorrow afternoon. Woo! It's a crazy week, but it's a fun week. These are a blast. It's a privilege to get to call these games. And thanks to people who watched it on NFHS last night. Some of you guys were tweeting at us. It was very cool. We'll be back with you on Thursday. We'll talk about those games tomorrow to preview them. I'm very, very excited about Southeast Whitfield and Northwest Whitfield. The Whitfield Classico is going to be in Macon, and there's going to be a lot of people from Whitfield County in Macon for that.
Oh, man.
It's going to be a good time. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about the twos. We'll talk about Champions League in Europe and in CONCACAF. All of it tomorrow, 9:05. See you then. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.